Chapter 1642. Rumble. Lotus root connection. Swish. 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 Yi Xian's power of karma was too terrifying. The red threads strangely entangled the dozen of them. Break! The dozen of them roared in shock. They used all of their cultivation to break free from the red threads that bound them. But they couldn't break free no matter what. Karma is determined by heaven. Everything rests. Lotus root connection, heaven and earth will be buried together. Yi Xian slowly walked towards the dozen or so people. Karma red threads directly wrapped around all of them, making them look like red dumplings. The power of karma was too terrifying. It was definitely the most mysterious power among the 10 strongest. Even these strongest couldn't understand how terrifying it was. Otherwise, the human Tao master wouldn't have been able to walk ahead of all the other strongest to go through the legendary taboo calamity. Kill! Yi Xian pointed his finger. The red threads of karma shone brightly. The dozen of them didn't even have time to cry out before they were turned into blood mists by the red threads of karma. Not even a corpse was left behind. Your methods are fierce and ruthless. You don't leave anyone behind. This is indeed the style of your destruction shrine. The undying heaven lord stared at Yi Xian in the mirror with a gloomy face. Then he sneered at the destruction lord. In the 100 seedlings battlefield, it's either life or death. So what if I kill everyone? The destruction lord retorted coldly. What is he doing? Suddenly, the lord of all spirits spoke in bewilderment, causing the other experts to look at Yi Xian once more. In the mirror, a green gourd appeared in Yi Xian's hand. He flipped his hand and turned the gourd upside down, absorbing the blood qi of the dozen of them into the green gourd. This scene made the strongest frown. They could faintly feel that Yi Xian had a huge motive for doing this. He's absorbing the blood qi of these people. Is he trying to refine some kind of demonic weapon? The undying heaven lord asked in surprise. Could it be? The sky-devouring demon lord squinted his eyes. He had been observing Yi Xian. Hesitation flashed across his eyes as he had a guess in his heart. Could it be what? Undying heaven lord asked. It's nothing. Maybe I'm thinking too much, the heaven-devouring demon master said calmly. Then, he looked at Yi Xian with a deep look in his eyes. There was something that the sky-devouring devil master did not say. If Yi Xian was not refining a demonic weapon, then it was very likely that he wanted to devour these people's blood qi and cultivation. However, other than the heaven-devouring devil hall, the only other person who knew the art of devouring was Yi Xian. Since Yi Xian had already perished, the possibility of this happening was close to zero. The world was austere, and all living things were silent. Yi Xian held the azure gourd in his hand, and a smile appeared on his face. At this moment, there was the blood and cultivation of 20 people in the gourd. This was an unimaginable treasure. If they were not in the 100 seedlings battlefield, Yi Xian would have wanted his main body to devour the blood qi cultivation base. Of course, Yi Xian also knew that everything he did was being monitored by the primordial strongest. But so what? No matter how suspicious these primordial strongest were, they would not be able to tell that he was Yi Xian. Moreover, the character created by Yi Xian's clone was originally that of an eternal genius, so he naturally had to display an invincible spirit that could sweep through all directions. Boom! Yi Xian took a step forward and headed toward the center of the 100 seedlings battlefield. He dragged the azure gourd with one hand and continued to search for his next prey. At the same time, the 3 heaven-defying monsters and a few mysterious and low-profile youths all charged out from where they were and headed toward the center of the 100 seedlings battlefield. It had only been a year since the 100 seedlings battlefield opened, and hundreds of people had died tragically. This also proved how cruel the competition in the 100 seedlings battlefield was. On the other side, the sky-devouring devil master pushed his way through, and more than 10 young prodigies died in his hands. Their cultivations were all devoured by him. Although the sky-devouring devil master had only opened 7 heavenly gates, the sky-devouring demonic skill made his battle prowess extremely terrifying, and he could completely suppress his opponents. The most terrifying part was that the sky-devouring devil master would devour the cultivation of every person he killed. His cultivation level was increasing exponentially. If not for the fact that devouring too quickly would cause his foundation to be unstable, the sky-devouring Devil Master could totally open the 8th heavenly gate. From this, one could see how terrifying the sky-devouring demonic skill was. With the sky-devouring demonic skill as a backing, the 100 Seedlings battlefield became a paradise for the sky-devouring Devil Master. It was truly ferocious, and all the prodigies retreated. Coincidentally, although the sky-devouring Devil Master and Yi Xian were not teleported to the same place, both of them were in the southwest direction. As the two of them continued to head toward the center, it was only a matter of time before they met. The sky-devouring Devil Master had also been trying to find out about Yi Xian's whereabouts. As the two of them became famous in the southwest direction, the sky-devouring Devil Master also started to chase after Yi Xian. On the other side, Yi Xian had killed very little along the way. Anyone who met him would not attack him unless they took the initiative to do so. Yi Xian simply treated them like air. It was not that Yi Xian was kind enough to let these people go. It was just that their cultivation levels were really not up to standard. At this moment, the second stage Immortal Realm could no longer satisfy Yi Xian. Only the third stage Immortal Realm cultivators could truly increase his cultivation level. Moreover, Yi Xian's purpose in coming to the 100 Seedlings battlefield was not just to kill people. He was very interested in those mysterious and low-profile young men, and was looking for them everywhere. However, it was a pity that Yi Xian could not find any trace of those people, even after searching for a full 100 years. Even the so-called 3 heaven-defying monsters did not appear in the area he was at. However, a piece of news stopped Yi Xian in his tracks. That was because he heard from some people that the sky-devouring Devil Master was also in this area, and was rushing toward his location. Yi Xian smiled. Yi Xian did not care about this kind of trash. Since the other party was coming to die, Yi Xian would naturally grant him his wish. The southwest desert. Sand filled the sky and the sky was dark. As long as one passed through this desert, they would be able to truly enter the central area. This was also considered the first stage of the 100 Seedlings battlefield. This desert was also considered the final battleground in the southwest region. Only the strong could be the first to walk out of the southwest region. Divine Destruction Child, get out here! Rumble! A black light streaked across the sky. It was the insufferably arrogant sky-devouring Devil Master. His entire body was emitting devouring devil light, which was extremely terrifying to look at from afar. Have you seen this trash, the Divine Destruction Child? Boom! The sky-devouring Devil Master took a step forward and appeared in a corner of the desert. The 3 saints had ugly expressions on their faces, and there was great fear in their eyes. It was not easy for them to enter the desert. As long as they walked out of this place, they would be able to enter the central area. They did not expect to be caught red-handed by the sky-devouring Devil Master. Fortunately, the sky-devouring Devil Master was not interested in the 3 of them. He was wholeheartedly looking for Yi Xian, and only wanted to tear Yi Xian into pieces. No, I didn't see him. The 3 of them had only opened the 6th heaven gate, and were geniuses in their respective sections. However, in front of the sky-devouring Devil Master, they were extremely lowly. Chapter 1643. You can all die now. Rumble. The heaven-devouring demonic son went on a killing spree. He had devoured the cultivation of more than 10 people, and was qualified to open the 8th gate of heaven. The 3 people before him were no match for him. Indeed, after an hour, the 3 of them turned into a bloody mist, and were devoured by the heaven-devouring demonic son. The demonic aura howled through the yellow sand as boundless ferocious aura spread out. Yi Xiaoyu, get out here! The heaven-devouring demonic son's confidence skyrocketed. As he continued to devour, his cultivation rose as well. He was even more confident that he would not lose to the 3 heaven-defying monsters. At this moment, he only wanted to kill Yi Xian and enter the central area to compete with the 3 heaven-defying monsters. For a full 7 days, the heaven-devouring demonic sun roared in the southwest desert. Some of the sky prides hiding in the yellow sand were speechless, and did not dare to appear before him. Here! Finally, the heaven-devouring demonic son's eyes lit up. The heaven-devouring demonic light rumbled as he disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already blocking Yi Xian's path. Yi Xiaoyu, I said you'd better not touch me. Otherwise I will kill you personally. The heaven-devouring demonic son smiled fiercely. Yi Xian smiled. However, his smile was covered by the ghost mask, so no one could see his expression. Why are there so many idiots in the world? Yi Xian sighed. Die! The heaven-devouring demonic son roared, and attacked with the heaven-devouring demonic skill. The terrifying devouring power covered the sky and pressed down on Yi Xian. Boom! One punch of karma, all things sink. Yi Xian only threw out one punch. The mysterious power of karma flowed around his fist. The so-called devouring power could not hinder him at all. Bang! Wah! One punch. It was just a single punch. This punch sent the heaven-devouring demonic son flying. Large amounts of blood spurted out and 3 of his ribs were broken. He fell heavily into the desert. Outside. Impossible. Boom! The sky-devouring demon master stood up abruptly. He stared at Yi Xian in the mirror, and his face was terrifyingly gloomy. Even though karma is unparalleled, my devouring power is not inferior to karma. How can Lu Xiaoyu not be affected? The heaven-devouring demon master muttered darkly. The heaven-devouring demon master was not the only one. The other utmost powerful beings were frowning as well. To think that Yi Xian would not be affected by the devouring power at all. On the contrary, he had sent the heaven-devouring demon master flying with a single punch. This was something that seemed like a fantasy story to them. Unfortunately, the 8 ultimate beings did not know that in terms of devouring power, Yi Xian was on par with the heaven-devouring demon master. How could a mere devouring power cultivated by the heaven-devouring demon master affect him? Although Yi Xian was only an avatar, and didn't possess the calamity immortal law, or the heaven-devouring demon art, he was already proficient in the profound truths of devouring. How could the heaven-devouring demon son possibly injure Yi Xian? Let's wait and see. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Undying Heaven Lord continued. In the desert. Lu Xiaoyu, I'll kill you. Boom. The heaven-devouring demon son's body was covered in blood. He soared into the sky from the desert and roared angrily as he charged towards Yi Xian again. This time, the heaven-devouring demon son raised his cultivation to the extreme, and even the phantom of the 8th heavenly gate appeared. This attack contained all of his cultivation, as he swore to kill Yi Xian right here and now. Bang! A punch. Another punch. This punch shattered the devouring demon light, and penetrated the heaven-devouring demon son's chest. Blood stained the sky as the heaven-devouring demon son fell to the ground again. This scene left the 8 ultimate beings in the outside world dumbfounded. They could not believe what they were seeing. They already knew that Yi Xian was very strong, and had even opened the 8 heavenly gates. The heaven-devouring demon son was indeed weaker than Yi Xian in terms of cultivation. However, both of them were in the 3rd stage of the immortal realm. Moreover, the heaven-devouring demonic skill had the miraculous effect of suppressing other skills. Logically speaking, the battle between the 2 of them should be a battle of life and death. However, the heaven-devouring demon son was no match for Yi Xian at all. Moreover, he was being suppressed by Yi Xian in an extremely ridiculous manner. How could the 8 ultimate beings not be shocked? The most important thing was that the 8 heavenly gates had not been opened since Yi Xian made his move. This also meant that Yi Xian had not used his full strength at all. No, there's definitely something wrong with this Lu Xiaoyu. The heaven-devouring demon master said firmly. The heaven-devouring demon son was his disciple. Although he did not put in much effort, his heaven-devouring demonic skill was definitely not for show. He could not believe that Yi Xian could break through his demonic skill so easily. Destruction, where did you take this person as your disciple? The undying Heaven Lord asked coldly. What a joke. What does it have to do with you who I take as my disciple? Do I have to report to you? The Destruction Lord retorted coldly. However, the Destruction Lord's eyes were also filled with shock. Although he knew that Yi Xian was strong, this level of strength had already surpassed the limit. Seems like he has a huge secret on him. The Destruction Lord muttered in his heart. He had a new understanding of Yi Xian. He was also guessing what secrets Yi Xian had. If Yi Xian was so strong because of his unparalleled talent, that would be a joke. No matter how strong one's talent was, it was only in terms of cultivation. One's battle strength needed time to temper. Moreover, Yi Xian could actually ignore the devouring power. This had nothing to do with talent at all. Dong! 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 Yi Xian stepped down from the sky and slowly walked towards the heaven-devouring demon sun. He was bathed in blood and had already fainted in the yellow sand. Where was the arrogance from before? What a piece of trash! Bang! Yi Xian stomped down on the heaven-devouring demon sun's head. A terrifying force erupted from his foot, causing the heaven-devouring demon sun to howl in pain. He was instantly awakened by the pain. Yi Xiaoyu, I'll kill you. When the heaven-devouring demon sun realized that he was being stomped by Yi Xian, he was extremely embarrassed. Devouring power erupted from his body, wanting to send Yi Xian flying. Bang! With a single stomp, Yi Xian shattered the heaven-devouring demon sun's rising demonic light. That terrifying stomp caused half of the heaven-devouring demon sun's head to cave in. Arg! The heaven-devouring demon sun was severely injured. Blood and teeth fell out of his mouth. He was completely unrecognizable. How dare you humiliate me like this? I'll kill you. The heaven-devouring demon sun's words were slurred, but he was still howling in anger. Bang! Yi Xian stomped down again. This time, half of the heaven-devouring demon sun's body was stomped into the yellow sand. His cursing stopped abruptly. What an ignorant piece of trash. I'll send you on your way. Yi Xian muttered cruelly. Killing trash like this was like stepping on an ant. He did not feel anything at all. Stop! Suddenly, just as Yi Xian was about to kill the heaven-devouring demon sun, a stern voice rang out from the sky. It was the heaven-devouring demon master. No matter what, the heaven-devouring demon sun was his disciple. Naturally, he would not let Yi Xian kill his disciple. What a pity! Who was Yi Xian? If he wanted to kill someone, no one could stop him. Yi Xian would not let this person go just because of a single sentence from the heaven-devouring demon master. This was because Yi Xian had always believed in one sentence. Being merciful to the enemy was being cruel to oneself. In the 100 Seedlings battlefield, no one cares about life and death. Even the strongest have no right to interfere. Boom! Yi Xian said mercilessly. He stomped on the heaven-devouring demon sun, causing him to explode on the spot. The green gourd spun upside down and absorbed all of his blood, qi, and cultivation into the gourd. His method was sharp and bloody. Chapter 1644. How dare you? In the outside world, the sky-devouring demon master's face was ashen as he roared in rage. He had never expected that Yi Xian would ignore his words and kill the sky-devouring demon sun so mercilessly. Yi Xian had completely offended the sky-devouring demon master. This also changed the expressions of the other supreme beings. Even the Destruction Lord frowned, as he secretly blamed Yi Xian for being too bold. Destruction, you've really taught a good disciple. The sky-devouring demon master sneered as he glared at the Destruction Lord. Then, he sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes, not saying a word. However, all the supreme beings present knew that the sky-devouring demon master was the most vengeful. The two orthodoxies would probably become enemies in the future. Unfortunately, Yi Xian did not care about this. He could not wait for these supreme beings to fight amongst themselves. The more chaotic the better. 100 Seedlings battlefield. After killing the sky-devouring demon sun and absorbing his blood energy and cultivation, Yi Xian put away the gourd in satisfaction. He looked around the southwest desert. Although his consciousness was suppressed by the 100 Seedlings battlefield and could not extend very far, he still discovered some sky prides hiding in the desert. However, Yi Xian was no longer interested in these people. Their cultivation was simply too weak. Even if he killed them, it would not benefit Yi Xian at all. After all, Yi Xian had always said that he was not a bloodthirsty person. Killing was just one of his methods. Go! Boom! Yi Xian took a step forward and walked out of the desert. As for the holy sons and holy daughters hiding in the sand, They all watched Yi Xian leave with faces full of fear. They only dared to show themselves after Yi Xian had completely disappeared into the desert. Then, they quickly headed towards the central area. The southwest desert, the easternmost sea, the northern cold river, and the southern Ming border. People walked out from all four directions. All of them were outstanding talents of their generation, and entered the central area at almost the same time. The true brutal battle had just begun, and it would be carried out in the central area. The entire 100 Seedlings battlefield could be said to be a miniature version of the 5 regions of chaos. Only the central region contained countless natural treasures. Furthermore, the exit would also open there after millions of years. In this long period of time, only those who walked out alive were the true victors. The so-called 100 Seedlings battlefield was actually a simulation of the world of a Yuanhui. Only those who truly came out on top would have the highest chance of becoming the strongest in the next Yuanhui. However, nothing was absolute. Even if someone really came out on top in the 100 Prodigy battlefield and defeated all the prodigies, that person might not be able to become the strongest throughout history. For example, the former master of human Tao had never participated in the 100 Prodigy battlefield. However, when she was still a Tao cultivator, those so-called supreme prodigies and monstrous geniuses had all been defeated by her. However, among the 10 strongest ones, many of them had emerged from the 100 Seedlings battlefield and were the best in their respective eras. Therefore, in the chaotic world, there was an unwritten saying that whoever could defeat the supreme prodigies in the 100 Prodigy battlefield would most likely become the strongest in the next Yuanhui. That was also why the 8 strongest ones paid so much attention to it. After all, the appearance of every strongest one was closely related to them. In the central area, vast and boundless, spiritual energy filled the sky. Yi Xian had just walked out of the southwest desert and felt his entire body relax. His suppressed divine sense and cultivation had returned to normal. Great! Yi Xian laughed heartily. The feeling of having his cultivation and divine sense suppressed was extremely uncomfortable. Now that they had recovered, he was instantly energized and could do many more things. Boom! The Tongtian pierced the ground, causing heaven and earth to tremble. An extremely terrifying aura erupted from Yi Xian's body. This aura soared into the sky and stirred up the endless clouds. At the same time, several extremely terrifying auras erupted from all directions in the central area. Yi Xian instantly sensed them. 3 heaven-defying monsters? Yi Xian withdrew his aura. Just by sensing, he realized that these 3 auras came from the 3 incredible demons. You guys are really arrogant. Do you really think that you are invincible? Yi Xian sneered. Should I take care of these 3 arrogant fellows first? Yi Xian stroked his chin and pondered. He was considering if he should eliminate these 3 incredible demons first. Of course, it was not that these 3 had offended him, but that Yi Xian had a goal in mind. This goal was related to the 3 strongest ones. As everyone knew, the first person to walk out of the 100 Prodigy battlefield would be the champion, and would be taught a secret technique by the 3 strongest ones. Of course, Yi Xian had no interest in the strongest secret technique. None of the secret techniques he knew were weaker than the strongest secret techniques. In fact, they were much stronger. Yi Xian only had one goal, and that was the heaven-shattering void cauldron in the hands of the 3 strongest ones. Only by winning the championship could he ask the 3 strongest ones to lend him the heaven-shattering void cauldron. If he could borrow it, he might not be able to return it when the time came. Although Yi Xian's idea was a little whimsical, it was not impossible. Forget it. After all, these 3 are the successors of the 3 strongest ones. If I take care of them now, it will attract attention. Yi Xian thought for a long time, and temporarily gave up on this plan. Anyway, there was still a lot of time. It would not be too late to take care of these 3 incredible demons after he finished dealing with some matters. However, Yi Xian also knew that his original body was not here. It was just a clone. It would be very difficult for him to suppress these 3 people. After all, these 3 incredible demons were existences who had opened 8 divine gates. Moreover, they all had extremely terrifying battle constitutions. The power of chaos, destiny, and space-time was not a joke. Karma. Whoosh. Yi Xian whispered. He pointed out a strand of karma in the void, and then quickly disappeared into the void. My good disciple, we haven't seen each other for many years. I wonder if you miss your master? Yi Xian said with a strange smile. Half an hour passed. A strand of karma returned, and instantly made Yi Xian understand. He took a step and headed north because his good disciple was there. Die. The black-robed man was covered in a black robe and a torrential demonic aura. The black-robed man smashed a saint into pieces with a slap. That terrifying demonic aura overflowed, and the demonic aura was so strong that one could not look directly at it. So weak. What saint of a great sect? They are just a bunch of trash. Wait until I cultivate the extreme demonic great Tao. The so-called 3 incredible demons will be bones under my feet. The black-robed man's body was covered in a black robe, and his appearance could not be seen clearly. However, this black-robed man's eyes were blood-red and sinister, and his voice was emotionless. Clap, clap, clap. Suddenly, there was a burst of applause. This also shocked the black-robed man. He suddenly looked towards the source of the sound, and his eyes, which were hidden under the black robe, flickered in horror. With his cultivation of 8 divine gates, he did not realize that someone was hiding beside him. This was simply unimaginable. Even the 3 incredible demons could not do it. Chapter 1645. Who is it? Show yourself. The black-robed man's demonic aura surged as he spoke in a ferocious voice. What a great supreme demonic sky technique. Not only did you cultivate it to the great mastery level, but you're also about to condense the supreme demonic great path. It seems that the mystical demonic body really makes cultivating the supreme demonic sky technique twice the result with half the effort. Yi Xian walked out slowly. He was wearing a devil mask as he looked at the black-robed man with a pair of deep eyes. Divine son of destruction? The black-robed man was stunned. Although he had never interacted with Yi Xian before, he had naturally noticed Yi Xian before entering the 100 Seedlings battlefield. However, in the next moment, the black-robed man's body trembled as his eyes instantly turned sinister. Yi Xian had actually seen through his technique, and even knew that he had the mystical demonic body. Yi Xiaoyu, I've really underestimated you. You can actually see through my technique. It seems that only one of us can survive today, the black-robed man said. The supreme demonic energy surrounded him, as the 8 heavenly gates quietly opened. Although there was no terrifying demonic aura, a wisp of murderous intent had already locked onto Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled and said, I didn't expect that a lowly young man from the North region would grow to become the successor of the supreme demonic body, and even open the 8 heavenly gates. You really didn't disappoint me. Should I call you Yi Xian Demon, or should I call you by your real name? Boom. Just as Yi Xian finished speaking, the black-robed man's aura became extremely chaotic as he staggered backward. He looked at Yi Xian in horror, and was completely stunned. You. Who are you? The black-robed man was horrified. Very few people knew his name. He could be counted with 5 fingers. Moreover, he was the palace master of the Supreme Demonic Hall. It had been many years since anyone dared to call him by his real name. The most important thing was that he was not called Yi Xian Demon when he was young. The name Yi Xian Demon was given to him by someone, and it had followed him for countless years. He hated the person who gave him that name. Without that person, he would not have his current cultivation level and become the palace master of the Supreme Demonic Hall. You are? The black-robed man was terrified to the extreme. He pointed at Yi Xian with a trembling finger, unable to say Yi Xian's name for a long time. This was because the fear and hatred he had for Yi Xian had been rooted deep within him for many years. Even in the middle of the night, he would be awakened by nightmares. This terrifying man had followed him for his entire life, and his goal was to become the strongest in history and truly kill this man. Only then would he be able to free himself from this nightmare. My good disciple, don't you recognize your master? Yi Xian smiled faintly. Impossible. The black-robed man tore off his black robe, revealing a valiant and extraordinary appearance. He was Yi Xian, the disciple of Yi Xian in the northern region. However, countless years had passed, and that youth was no longer young. He had grown into a young man, and the cold aura he exuded was proof that his hands were stained with blood after so many years. Who exactly are you? Yi Xian did not believe Yi Xian at all. This was because he was too familiar with Yi Xian's aura. The divine child of destruction in front of him was completely different from Yi Xian. Be it in terms of appearance or aura, they were two completely different people. Why? Don't you recognize your master after I changed my appearance? Yi Xian took off his ghostly mask, revealing a stunning face. However, when Yi Xian saw it, his face turned extremely cold. Divine child of destruction, I don't care what relationship you have with that person. However, since you dared to impersonate him to deceive me, I will kill you today, and he will not know. Yi Xian had been hiding for many years. Firstly, it was for the extreme demonic heavenly palace. Secondly, it was to avoid Yi Xian. Now that his identity had been exposed, he wanted to kill Yi Xian to silence him. Boom. The extreme demonic heavenly skill could destroy the heavens and the earth. At this moment, Yi Xian did not hold back at all. A terrifying extreme demonic technique was brewing, and the entire area darkened. This attack also used Yi Xian's power. He was determined to kill Yi Xian with one blow. You want to kill your master? Yi Xian frowned slightly. Even Yi Xian was full of praise for the cultivation level that Yi Xian had displayed. If his doppelganger were to fight with Yi Xian, he might not be able to take down this traitorous disciple. However, Yi Xian naturally had another way. Without waiting for Yi Xian to make a move, Yi Xian formed a seal with both hands and shot out an extremely strange blood-colored rune. The next moment something shocking happened. Ah! Yi Xian screamed in pain. The extreme demonic technique that he had just condensed dissipated. He fell to the ground like a deflated balloon, holding his head and howling in pain. Blood seal. Back when Yi Xian sent Yi Xian to the Grand Central Territory, he had already planted a blood seal in Yi Xian's body. He also told Yi Xian that if Yi Xian wanted to break free from his control, he would have to become the strongest in history. At this moment, although Yi Xian's doppelganger was here, he was still in control of the blood seal. Yi Xian activated the blood seal, and instantly made Yi Xian suffer extreme pain and torture. How could he still fight at this moment? You are really him? Yi Xian groaned in pain. This blood seal was extremely cruel. It could be said that one would rather die. However, Yi Xian endured the pain and shouted at Yi Xian while trembling. At this moment, he really believed that the person in front of him was Yi Xian. This was because other than Yi Xian, no one else could trigger the blood seal that was planted in his body. Withdraw. Yi Xian waved his hand and dispersed the blood restriction great technique. Yi Xian collapsed to the ground like a dead dog as he panted heavily. However, his gaze towards Yi Xian was filled with fear and hatred. What do you want? Yi Xian got up slowly. However, he looked at Yi Xian with a pale face. His eyes were filled with fear. Many years later, the master and disciple met again, at the 100 Seedlings battlefield. However, Yi Xian was not happy at all. This was because he was terrified of Yi Xian. However, deep down, he wanted to kill Yi Xian. Under such complicated emotions, he had completely lost his mind. He did not know what Yi Xian would do to him. Kneel down. Yi Xian's expression turned cold as he let out an explosive shout. You? Yi Xian was furious. However, when he saw Yi Xian's cold eyes, his heart trembled violently. He recalled the terrifying scene back then, and could only kneel down in humiliation. A master for a day is a father for life. You should respect your master when you see him. My good disciple, don't you understand this principle? Yi Xian said calmly. Master, please forgive me. I know my mistake. Yi Xian clenched his teeth so hard that they almost broke. He had not been humiliated like this for a long time. Since he joined the extreme demon heavenly palace, he was destined to become the strongest man in history. However, he had to kneel down before Yi Xian again. Humiliation? Hatred? You want to kill me? Haha. Yi Xian smiled faintly. He looked at Yi Xian with contempt and said, I've told you before that you can embark on the path of cultivation, because I nurtured you. Therefore, you will always owe me. Unless you become the strongest man in history, you won't be able to kill me. Master, you must be joking. I wouldn't dare. Yi Xian did not mean what he said. However, he still kowtowed to Yi Xian humbly. After countless years of tempering, Yi Xian Mo was no longer the immature youth from back then. He understood that his little life was in Yi Xian's hands. As long as Yi Xian willed it, his soul would be scattered and he would die. Come tell me, how did you join the Extreme Demon Heavenly Palace? Have you found the heavenly core of chaos of the Extreme Demon Lord? Yi Xian stood with his hands behind his back. Yi Xian was kneeling at his feet. However, Yi Xian did not let Yi Xian get up. This was a kind of power that suppressed Yi Xian, so much that he could not raise his head. Yi Xian wanted to let Yi Xian know that he would always be his master. No matter how strong Yi Xian became, he could only kneel at his feet. He could accelerate the process of condensing the supreme demonic Great Tao. This was also the reason why he had appeared in the 100 Seedlings battlefield. After listening to Yi Xian's brief description, Yi Xian nodded slightly. Not bad. You really didn't disappoint me. Yi Xian praised. Master allowed me to embark on the path of the Tongtian. This disciple will never dare to forget Master's kindness. Yi Xian had completely calmed down. He humbly kowtowed to Yi Xian and said some insincere words. In fact, he was thinking about how to get out of Yi Xian's control. Kindness? Yi Xian sneered. Master has indeed done you a favor. However, you can't wait to kill me. After all, I was the one who forced you to turn into a demon. I'm afraid that when you become the strongest of all time, the first person you want to kill will be me, right? This disciple wouldn't dare. Yi Xian saw through his thoughts. Yi Xian broke out in cold sweat and hurriedly kowtowed to apologize. He didn't dare to look into Yi Xian's eyes at all. Get up. I'm just joking with you. Yi Xian faked a smile. Thank you, Master. Yi Xian slowly stood up and bowed as he left Yi Xian's side. His entire body was extremely respectful. All of a sudden, Yi Xian frowned. This was because the feeling of being spied on by the strongest had descended once again. He knew that these strongest of all time were spying on him again. Be careful. The strongest consciousness has descended and is spying on you and me. Yi Xian secretly transmitted his voice. Yi Xian was taken aback. He immediately put on the black robe again. After all, he was the successor of the Supreme Demon. It was best not to expose his identity if he could. At the same time, in the outside world, the 8 strongest of all were slightly stunned when they saw Yi Xian and Yi Xian walking together. They had long noticed Yi Xian's existence and recognized that he cultivated the Supreme Demon Sky skill. Furthermore, his cultivation was very strong. The Destruction God's child is walking together with the successor of the Supreme Demon? Undead Heaven Master frowned. The successor of the Supreme Demon is participating in the 100 Seedlings battlefield. Regardless of whether he can win in the end, if he can obtain the heavenly heart of chaos from the Supreme Demon Lord in the future, he can also become the strongest of all time. We should take good care of him then, Master of Chaos said in a deep voice. In the chaotic universe, there are 12 Yuan Hui. Every Yuan Hui, there will be the strongest of all. We can't scheme against the successor of the Supreme Demon for our own selfish reasons. Master of Fate warned coldly. He had already seen Yi Xian's fate. He would definitely inherit the position of the strongest of the Supreme Demon Lord in the future. Fate was the most ruthless, but it also followed the rules of fate the most. Yi Xian's fate was to inherit the position of the Supreme Demon Lord. This was already predestined. This was also the reason why Master of Fate reminded the other strongest of all. It's a pity that the human Tao has fallen. This disciple of hers seems to be a good-for-nothing. Master of Time and Space frowned slightly as he observed Luo Yao. Fate, can this Luo Yao take over the position of the human Tao? Undead Heaven Master asked. She's not fated to do so. The Lord of Destiny directly sentenced Luo Yao to death. His emotionless eyes fell onto Yi Xian, causing the undying Heaven Lord to be shocked. Could it be that this Destruction God's child will take over the position of the human Tao? Undead Heaven Master asked doubtfully. After all, Yi Xian had also cultivated the power of karma. Furthermore, he had cultivated it to great success. If Luo Yao, a disciple of the human Tao, could not take over the position of the human Tao, the most likely candidate would be the destruction god's child. It was just that for some reason, Undead Heaven Master did not want Yi Xian to take over the position of the human Tao. This was because he had an inexplicable killing intent towards Yi Xian. He felt that this person would be a threat. Fate, does this disciple of mine really have a chance to take over the position of the human Tao? Master of Destruction's eyes shone brightly as he looked at Master of Fate hopefully. After all, Yi Xian was his disciple. If Yi Xian could take over the position of the human Tao, then with the two strongest combined, he would definitely have the confidence to face off against chaos and fate and space-time. He, Master of Fate, frowned as he stared at Yi Xian in the mirror for a long time without saying a word. I can't see his future destiny. After a long time, the Master of Fate finally spoke up. This had the other utmost powerful beings stumped as well. Could it be that he's not under the control of chaos? Master of Chaos's expression changed slightly. Other than taboo characters, all living beings in chaos had their own destiny. They were all controlled by the chaotic universe. Of course, there were exceptions. For example, Yi Xian and Lu Bai. No, he's under the control of chaos destiny. It's just that everyone who participates in the 100 Seedlings battlefield has been blessed by the chaotic will. My Dharma Eye of Fate cannot see his future destiny. Even the others are blurry. I can see the destiny of the Supreme Devil's successor, because he's about to cultivate the Supreme Devil Great Path. As for the disciple of the human Tao, it has nothing to do with destiny. It's because she doesn't have the potential to become the strongest, Master of Fate explained. Chapter 1647. Upon hearing the Master of Destiny's explanation, the Undying Heaven Lord heaved a sigh of relief. However, the Master of Destruction could not hide his disappointment. However, the few ultimate existences did not notice. The Master of Destiny had been looking at Yi Xian the entire time. His merciless eyes of destiny were rotating slightly, and there was even a trace of doubt in his eyes. Although everyone in the 100 Seedlings battlefield was supported by the chaotic will, the fate of the god of destruction was extremely vague. It was as if this person did not exist in this world. Although the Master of Destiny could not see the future of these people in the 100 Seedlings battlefield, he could still sense some things as he controlled the law of destiny. However, Yi Xian gave him a very strange feeling, as if this person did not exist in the chaotic universe. This feeling was extremely strange, and it made the Master of Destiny extremely curious about Yi Xian. In fact, the Master of Destiny was not wrong. This was because Yi Xian was merely a clone. Although he did exist in the chaotic universe, a clone was still a clone. There was no fate to speak of. In the 100 Seedlings battlefield, when Yi Xian sensed that the ultimate existences were no longer spying on him, he heaved a sigh of relief. After all, his relationship with Yi Xian could not be revealed to outsiders. They have left, Yi Xian said in a low voice. Phew. Yi Xian heaved a sigh of relief. His heart was also at ease. Master, why is your aura completely different from before? Even your appearance has changed? Yi Xian probed carefully. This is just my clone, Yi Zichen said. Yi Xian did not hide anything, and directly told Yi Xian the truth. Clone? Yi Xian was horrified. He looked at Yi Xian in shock. He could sense that Yi Xian's cultivation was extremely terrifying. It was definitely not below his. He was also someone who had opened the 8 sky gates. Yi Xian was extremely excited just now. He thought that he had caught up to Yi Xian, and would be the first to walk in front of Yi Xian. When he became an ultimate existence, it would be the time of Yi Xian's death. However, when he heard Yi Xian say that this was just a clone, Yi Xian was completely dumbfounded. It was as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over him. Even a clone was so terrifying. Then how powerful was Yi Xian's original body? As the saying goes, a single glimpse reveals the whole leopard. When Yi Xian thought of this, his heart trembled. He looked at Yi Xian with fear in his eyes. Why? You seem to be afraid of me? Yi Xian looked at Yi Xian calmly. No. I was just shocked by Master's cultivation and couldn't control myself, Yi Xuanma explained in a panic. My good disciple, remember what Master has told you. Unless you have absolute strength to kill me, you should know what will happen to you if you betray me, Yi Xian said calmly. Disciple wouldn't dare. Yi Xian hurriedly bowed. However, his heart was trembling because he felt that he had been seen through completely in front of Yi Xian. He was even more terrified of Yi Xian. Hui hui. Yi Xian smiled and patted Yi Xuanma on the shoulder. As long as you listen to me obediently, you will become the new lord of the extreme demons sooner or later. Master will not mistreat you. Disciple thanks Master for your nurturing. Yi Xuanma forced a smile. Alright, you can leave now. But remember, if you encounter a few people, don't fight them. Otherwise, I'm afraid you'll die in their hands before you can become the new lord of the extreme devil. Yi Xian briefly introduced the few mysterious and low-key youths. This caused Yi Xian to listen carefully and firmly remember them in his heart. After all, they were people that even Yi Xian was wary of. This meant that they were extremely terrifying. Master, are you really letting me leave? When the two of them were about to separate, Yi Xuanma probed carefully. He could not believe that Yi Xian would let him go just like that. After all, he was about to cultivate the great path of the extreme demons. Yi Xian should have kept him by his side and ordered him around. The 100 Seedlings battlefield is a place of opportunity for you, and I don't want to obstruct your opportunity. I only came to look for you today to warn you about those dangerous people. If you die, won't all my years of planning go to waste? Yi Xian faintly smiled, then took a step forward and disappeared. Seeing that Yi Xian was already far away, Yi Xuanma's humble expression gradually disappeared. He looked coldly at Yi Xian's departing figure, and a sinister look flashed across his eyes. Yi Xian, although I'm as humble as a dog in front of you, you're too arrogant. You're so arrogant that you think you can always suppress me. Soon, it won't be long before I kill you. When that day comes, I want you to kneel before me and repent, Yi Xuanma said in a low voice. Demonic aura surged out of him. He had never forgotten the oppression and humiliation that Yi Xian had inflicted on him. Boom! Yi Xuanma took a step forward and disappeared. He wanted to strengthen himself quickly and truly break free from Yi Xian's control. What a pity! Yi Xuanma was still too inexperienced. He had no idea that Yi Xian had already done something to him. A thread of karma connected the two of them. Even if Yi Xuanma escaped to the ends of the earth, no matter what Yi Xuanma was doing, Yi Xian would be able to sense it immediately. This was how terrifying the power of karma was. It was also the reason why Yi Xian allowed Yi Xuanma to leave. In the void, Yi Xian stood with his hands behind his back and looked at Yi Xuanma's departing figure. He heard every single word that Yi Xuanma said just now. His cultivation has indeed increased by quite a bit, but his temperament is still a bit too tender. That's good as well. If his mind is truly unparalleled, then it would be difficult for me to control him. Yi Xian smiled strangely. However, in the next moment, Yi Xian frowned slightly. He suddenly felt a sense of urgency in his heart. Although he had planted a blood seal on Yi Xuanma, the blood seal would be broken if Yi Xuanma became an ultimate expert of all ages. Therefore, before Yi Xuanma became the new lord of the ultimate demons, he had to speed up his cultivation and allow his original body to grow quickly. After all, Yi Xian's only way to fight against an ultimate expert of all ages was to transform into the future. However, there were too many limitations to transforming into the future. It was not something that he could use whenever he wanted to. It seems that the battlefield of Reapers is not only a good place for Yi Xuanma to cultivate, but also a good place for me to improve my cultivation. Yi Xian came back to his senses, and a cruel smile appeared on his face. The ultimate sky prides here were not weak. Moreover, there were many hidden opportunities. If he wanted everything, his original body's cultivation would definitely skyrocket. A cruel plan formed in Yi Xian's mind. This idea was extremely crazy and daring. It would incur the wrath of the ultimate experts of all ages and various orthodoxies. It would also make Yi Xian an enemy of the entire world. However, in Yi Xian's mind, as long as he could improve his original body's cultivation, He did not care about being an enemy of the entire world. After all, the rules of the battlefield of reapers were laid out. He was only acting within the rules. Moreover, he had the support of the Lord of Destruction. He could carry out his cruel plan as he wished. Boom! Yi Xian took a step forward and instantly disappeared into the void. However, a cruel smile appeared on his face. Chapter 1648. Time was like water, passing in the blink of an eye. It had been 10,000 years since the 100 Seedlings battlefield began. Out of more than 1,000 supreme sky prides, only about 700 remained. This kind of cruel battle was going on all the time, and it also filtered out some of the true experts. The first to bear the brunt were the 3 great monsters. The 3 of them defeated all the sky prides, and many other young sky prides followed them, forming 3 major forces in the 100 Seedlings battlefield. The strong were like mountains, and the weak were like dogs. The young sky prides who could participate in the 100 Seedlings battlefield were extremely proud. They were all saints and saintesses of various orthodoxies. However, in the 100 Seedlings battlefield, they finally realized that the cultivation base they were so proud of was nothing. Just the successors of the strongest orthodoxies were enough to crush them. No one wanted to die. When these young sky prides realized their limitations, they finally gave up on fighting for the top 10 spots. Instead, they followed the successors of some of the strongest orthodoxies and formed their own forces. The killing in the 100 Seedlings battlefield finally subsided. The entire central area was divided into many regions, and these forces faced each other as they searched for the great opportunities in the 100 Seedlings battlefield. Among them, the 3 great monsters were the strongest and had the most followers. The 3 great monsters were high above, and they occupied the top 3 spots unless someone could defeat them. However, the possibility of that happening was minuscule. There were also people who didn't believe in heresy and challenged the 3 heaven-defying freaks. However, without exception, all of them died in body and soul. Not even a complete corpse was left behind. This made the 3 heaven-defying freaks' reputation reach its peak. Yi Xian looked at the situation calmly. He opened up a cave abode to cultivate, and did not pay much attention to the happenings in the outside world. Instead, he focused on cultivating. That was right. Yi Xian was cultivating in seclusion. A peerless elixir was born. The various forces were fighting for this peerless elixir, and even the 3 great monsters were attacking each other. A chaos divine weapon was discovered, and many sky prides started fighting each other. Even the legendary chaos divine pill appeared. Consuming one would open a divine gate, and it completely ignited the killing in the 100 Seedlings battlefield. What about Yi Xian? He sat cross-legged in the cave abode, his eyes indifferent as he watched the slaughter outside. He didn't seem to have any intention of snatching these divine items that had just appeared. Dogs biting each other, what a bunch of idiots. Yi Xian sat cross-legged in his Immortal's cave, watching with his Dharma eyes as the peerless geniuses fought over the treasures. Even the 3 most heaven-defying demon-level geniuses were fighting each other. However, he didn't seem to be affected at all. Instead, he smiled disdainfully. What a bunch of idiots. What a joke. Yi Xian no longer paid attention to these young geniuses. He didn't even care about the 3 heaven-defying geniuses. He continued to cultivate in seclusion. Yi Xian naturally had his own plans, but he wasn't in a hurry because it wasn't time yet. The 100 Seedlings battlefield had just opened, and 10 million years was an extremely long time. During this period of time, he could completely settle down. Not only did he have to let his clone open the 9th heavenly gate, but he also had to study all the techniques of his original body. The only ones that Yi Xian really paid attention to were those mysterious young men. However, the interesting thing was that these people were like Yi Xian. Ever since they entered the central area, they had all opened up their cave abodes and cultivated in seclusion. When Yi Xian discovered what they were doing, Yi Xian was slightly stunned. Then he laughed self-deprecatingly. It seemed that he had underestimated these people. After all, there were many smart people in this world, and Yi Xian wasn't the only one. There was no sun or moon in the cave, and thousands of years had passed. It was common for cultivators to go into seclusion, for tens of thousands of years, to millions of years. This time, Yi Xian had gone into seclusion for 1,000,000 years. It had to be mentioned. During these 1,000,000 years, Yi Xian's clone's cultivation level had been increasing every day. One day, after 1,000,000 years, he finally let his clone open the 9th heavenly gate. Boom! Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were spinning terrifyingly, and the void was distorting and shattering. The 9 heavenly gates floated behind him, and an extremely terrifying aura was erupting. However, Yi Xian had sealed the entire cave abode, so the aura of his breakthrough didn't spread to the outside world. It took 1,000,000 years to open the 9th heavenly gate. It's indeed a little too long, Yi Xian muttered. If outsiders heard Yi Xian's words at this moment, they would definitely be dumbfounded and extremely jealous. 1,000,000 years was only a short period of time in the endlessly long life of a cultivator. One had to know that there were 9 heavenly gates in the immortal realm. As one's cultivation level increased, one would open more heavenly gates. Opening each heavenly gate required an unimaginable amount of time. Take Sect Master Butian for example. He had lived for hundreds of millions of years, but he had only opened 8 heavenly gates. However, Yi Xian had only used 1,000,000 years to open the 9th heavenly gate. This speed was already unimaginably terrifying, but Yi Xian still wasn't satisfied. Sigh. Yi Xian sighed. Although his clone had opened the 9th heavenly gate, his original body still hadn't opened the 7th heavenly gate in the past 1,000,000 years. This made Yi Xian very frustrated. If it weren't for the fact that I'm afraid of being discovered by these immortals, I wouldn't be able to open the teleportation tunnel. Just the blood energy and cultivation that the gourd absorbed would definitely allow me to open the 7th heavenly gate, Yi Xian said, slightly annoyed. As soon as Yi Xian finished speaking, his expression suddenly froze. This was because he had been in seclusion for the past 1,000,000 years, and hadn't sensed the entire 100 Seedlings battlefield at all. Now that he had woken up from his seclusion, he suddenly realized that the 100 Seedlings battlefield was filled with chaotic willpower. The outside world could no longer observe the situation in the 100 Seedlings battlefield. The peeping immortals have disappeared? Yi Xian said in shock. However, in the next moment he laughed out loud, causing the entire cave abode to rumble. Yi Xian felt pretty good. The peeping immortals had indeed disappeared. As time passed in the 100 Seedlings battlefield, the willpower of the chaotic universe gradually descended and sealed off the entire 100 Seedlings battlefield. The 8 immortals outside could no longer observe the situation in the 100 Seedlings battlefield. This was undoubtedly good news for Yi Xian. In order to confirm that the peeping immortals had indeed disappeared, Yi Xian hurriedly extended his divine consciousness to observe the void. After 100 years, he could finally confirm that the immortals could no longer spy on the 100 Seedlings battlefield. All right, Yi Xian roared in excitement. Without the surveillance of the immortals, he could open the teleportation tunnel with his original body, and truly let his original body open the 7th heavenly gate. As for how many divine items the young prodigies outside had plundered, and how many people had died fighting each other, it didn't matter to Yi Xian. This was because he was the only one who would emerge victorious in the end. Open. His clone and his original body were mentally connected. Yi Xian roared in his heart. Both his original body and clone executed their techniques at the same time, with the help of the calamity transformation. Boom! A teleportation tunnel suddenly opened. With the help of his original body's calamity transformation, even the sealed 100 Seedlings battlefield couldn't stop Yi Xian from opening the teleportation tunnel. Chapter 1649. Heaven Smiting Transformation, leaving behind no trace of chaos. This wasn't just a saying, it was a true forbidden escape technique. Buzz! The teleportation channel opened, and the underground world was filled with a sea of fire. Amidst the terrifying sea of magma, the figure of the main body was faintly discernible. The terrifying light of heaven smiting surrounded his body, and an excited smile appeared on the corner of Yi Xian's mouth. Go! Chi! Yi Xian flipped his hand, and a green gourd appeared. Yi Xian directly threw it into the teleportation channel. On the other side, the sea of magma, the main body suddenly opened his eyes, and a pair of law eyes of annihilation rotated in a terrifying manner. He reached out and caught the green gourd in his hand, then quickly opened the mouth of the gourd and turned it upside down. Rumble! A terrifying and astonishing thing happened. The boundless blood chi was as vast as the ocean, filling the entire underground world. Even the scorching hot magma in the sea of flames was stagnating. The terrifying blood chi that filled the sky and earth was rioting, and the faint wails of dead souls could be heard. Swallow! The main body opened his mouth, and the mysteries of the Calamity Transcender technique and the heaven-devouring demonic art bloomed. The majestic blood energy that filled the entire underground world turned into a river of blood and was swallowed into his stomach. Bang! 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 6 consecutive explosions sounded, and the main body's body shone with a terrifying light. 6 heavenly gates opened one after another behind the main body, and the phantom of the 7th heavenly gate condensed. Open! The main body had swallowed so much blood energy, and this power was enormous to the extreme. At this moment, it was all used by the main body to condense the 7th heavenly gate. Boom! Boom! Chaotic thunder roared, and magma overturned the sky. The underground world where the main body was located was rioting, and the 7th heavenly gate shook. The originally extremely faint phantom of the gate gradually solidified and began to take shape. Good! Yi Xian roared. The blood energy was incomparably majestic, and the main body was only a step away from opening the 7th heavenly gate. According to Yi Xian's estimation, the blood energy was enough to open the 7th heavenly gate. The most important problem was, opening the 7th heavenly gate only allowed him to break through one level. But this level was no small matter. This was extremely important to Yi Xian. Opening the 7th gate of heaven meant that Yi Xian's original body had entered the 3rd stage of the immortal realm, which was a qualitative breakthrough. It could be said that he was completely reborn. His true body was already able to suppress 3rd stage sempiternal realm experts when he was in the 2nd stage. By the time he opened the 7th heavenly gate, only sempiternal realm experts would be able to fight against him. Moreover, even if he was at the peak immortal realm, it was still unknown whether he could defeat Yi Xian's true body. After all, the foundation of Yi Xian's original body was too terrifying. Even the weakest of the great arts he knew were supreme arts. Not to mention those forbidden arts he knew. You could say that, as long as Yi Xian opened the 7th heaven gate, he would be almost invincible in the immortal realm. Unless it was a true heaven-defying monstrous genius at the great circle of immortal realm, no one would be a match for him. Moreover, this was only the beginning. Yi Xian's original body cultivated the 12 heavenly gates of the immortal realm. The 9 heavenly gates were not his limit. He could still enter the 4th stage, the 10th gate of heaven, the 11th gate of heaven, and the 12th gate of heaven. Yi Xian had a feeling that this feeling was extremely strong. If he opened the 10th gate of heaven and truly entered the 4th stage of the immortal realm, the so-called Great Circle of Immortal Realm experts would be able to crush them mercilessly. He might even be invincible in the face of a half-step omnipotent expert. Moreover, Yi Xian could vaguely feel that if he opened all the 12 heavenly gates, even a half-step omnipotent expert would not be a match for him. If the 12 heavenly gates were combined, and he truly entered the Great Circle of Immortal Realm, would he be able to challenge an omnipotent expert? Of course, these were all Yi Xian's guesses. As for whether it was true, he still needed to cultivate all the 12 heavenly gates. Now his original body was crazily breaking through. The 7th gate of heaven had already materialized. Just a little bit more, and he would be able to open the 7th gate of heaven and enter the 3rd stage of the immortal realm. Open! His original body was crazily activating the heaven-burying incantation. The majestic blood chi that he had devoured was evaporating. He was even using all his cultivation to condense the 7th gate of heaven. However, no matter how hard he tried to condense the 7th gate of heaven, he was always a little bit away from success. Damn it! Yi Xian growled. His mind was connected to his original body. Naturally, he knew why the 7th gate of heaven was not formed yet. Insufficient cultivation. His original body's foundation was simply too terrifying. The amount of cultivation consumed for each gate of heaven was unimaginable. Even when Yi Xian gave his original body the blood qi that he had devoured from the gourd, he was still lacking by a little bit. There's no other way. I can only let my clone give him a hand. In the next moment, Yi Xian made a decision. He formed a seal with both hands. His clone shook, and an extremely terrifying blood qi erupted from his body. Then it rushed toward his original body through the teleportation channel. One had to know that his original body and his clone were originally one. Both of them came from the same origin. Their origin energy was even more inseparable. At this moment, Yi Xian was using his clone's cultivation to help his original body. This also shocked his original body. Open. Rumble. After devouring a portion of his clone's cultivation, the seventh gate of heaven suddenly opened. The reincarnation mysteries poured down, and his original body's aura rose at a terrifying rate. Buzz! The seventh gate of heaven rotated at a terrifying speed. The 7 paths of reincarnation mysteries flickered on the gate. Even his original body's cultivation increased at a terrifying rate. Compared to before, it was like heaven and earth. Great! Yi Xian shouted excitedly. Although his face was pale, his original body had condensed the 7th gate of heaven, and he could completely feel a powerful force that he had never felt before. Yi Xian was certain that if his original body appeared, there would not be many immortal realm cultivators in the entire chaotic universe who would be his match. Close. Yi Xian quickly closed the teleportation channel. This time the commotion was too great. Even he could not cover it up, and it would definitely attract the attention of the other people in the 100 Seedlings battlefield. As for his original body, he was not worried at all. Now that he had opened the 7th gate of heaven, his original body would stabilize his cultivation on its own. Moreover, he would also comprehend various techniques that he knew. However, his clone had just given a portion of his cultivation to his original body. At this moment, Yi Xian was also a little weak. Although his clone's cultivation level was still at the 9th gate of heaven, Yi Xian only had 50% of his cultivation left. He needed to recover quickly. If someone came to find him during this period, his clone would indeed be in danger. Fortunately, Yi Xian had previously killed so many saints and deities, and their Qingquan bags had all been plundered. Although he had used up more than half of the 1 million years, there were still many divine pills and miraculous medicines left. It was enough for him to recover his cultivation in the shortest time possible. Yi Xian did not hesitate at all. He quickly took out a large number of divine pills and miraculous medicines and swallowed them. Then, he quickly refined the spiritual power of these pills and began to recover his clone's cultivation. At the same time, the commotion caused by Yi Xian's cave abode immediately attracted the attention of various forces. The 3 heaven-defying monsters even sent people to investigate. Chapter 1650. Whoosh. Hundreds of cultivators rushed toward Yi Xian's location, because the aura of Yi Xian's breakthrough was too terrifying. Although it only lasted for a moment, it was enough to cause a huge commotion in the 100 Seedlings battlefield. Who are you, fellow Taoist? Whoosh. Unfortunately, no matter how they called out to him, Yi Xian did not respond at all. This was because he was frantically refining the pills in his body and recovering his lost cultivation base at a terrifying rate. Fellow Taoist, I'm here on the orders of the Heavenly Lady of Destiny. I hope you'll give me the honor of meeting you. A maiden sage said in a deep voice. The chaotic divine child has invited you to meet him. Another divine child said. I wonder which orthodoxy you're from. Can you come out and meet the space-time divine child? Another person invited Yi Xian. Not only did the followers of the 3 heaven-defying monsters invite Yi Xian, but the other powers also invited him. However, no matter how many times these followers called out to him, Yi Xian did not respond at all. At the same time, the few mysterious young men who kept a low profile all activated their Dharma eyes and looked in Yi Xian's direction. After all, Yi Xian was paying attention to them, and they were also paying attention to Yi Xian. To put it bluntly, 100 Seedlings battlefield, true powerhouses could sense each other's presence and could sense who was a threat to each other. In the eyes of these mysterious young men, Yi Xian was a threat. How could they not pay attention to Yi Xian? At this moment, the few mysterious young sky prides wanted to see if Yi Xian would continue to hide and escape after being noticed by these forces, or would he confront the successors of these ultimate orthodoxies head-on? After all, someone had to defeat these so-called ultimate successors. However, these people did not want to be the first to do so. The reason was simple. Their target was the strongest of all time. However, the successors of these ultimate orthodoxies were all stumbling blocks. If they were to personally take action, they would undoubtedly offend these ultimate orthodoxies. If there was someone who could help them get rid of these supreme orthodoxies, that would undoubtedly be the best outcome. They would not have to offend these supreme orthodoxies either. Obviously, these mysterious young prodigies really hoped that Yi Xian would be the one to take the lead. Of course, Yi Xian's current identity was that of the divine son of destruction. Even if he were to go against these powerful heirs, it wouldn't be a big deal. Stand out? Of course, Yi Xian wouldn't stand out, and he wouldn't be used by others. At this moment, he was refining the elixir in his body, and had already recovered 80% of his lost cultivation. Naturally, he also felt the gazes of these people. Fellow Taoist, if you still don't show up, then we have no choice but to be impolite. Boom! Finally, someone could no longer hold back and made a move. A terrifying great technique blasted towards Yi Xian's cave mansion. Bang! However, it was also at this moment. Yi Xian's cave mansion suddenly opened. He took a step out and appeared in the outside world. The terrifying great technique was immediately dispersed by him with a wave of his hand. The divine son of destruction? When the crowd saw Yi Xian's face clearly, there was a large number of exclamations. The faces of the saintesses turned red. Clearly Yi Xian, who was not wearing the devil mask, had caused these saintesses to be infatuated with him. His white robe was peerless, his face was stunning, and his otherworldly aura was overflowing. Although Yi Xian did not display any power, his aura alone was enough to make the saintesses look at him with adoration. Yi Xian was really a femme fatale. He was enough to charm all the women in the world. However, in the eyes of these saintesses, the way they looked at Yi Xian was obviously not friendly. So the divine son of destruction is cultivating in seclusion here. Are you willing to follow the divine son of chaos? A saintess asked. Scram! Yi Xian's aura was otherworldly and his face was stunning, but he did not leave any room for negotiation. Divine son of destruction, don't be too arrogant. Right now, the 100 Seedlings battlefield is dominated by the 3 heaven-defying monsters. You alone. Someone could not stand Yi Xian's arrogant attitude, and was even more jealous of Yi Xian's stunning appearance, so he directly berated him. Bang! The next moment, a bolt of destructive lightning smashed down. Before the person could even finish speaking, he was directly blasted into pieces on the spot. His body and soul were completely destroyed. Absorb! The green gourd spun around, and directly absorbed this person's blood energy. After this series of actions, Yi Xian could be said to have done it in one go. Divine son of destruction, how dare you kill my people? Rumble! The sky darkened. Chaotic divine light. A streak of chaotic divine light spread out from the horizon. The divine son of chaos strolled across the sky. Terrifying chaotic power surrounded his body, and the majestic light was so dazzling that people could not open their eyes. Bang! 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 The 8 heavenly gates rumbled as the divine son of chaos unleashed boundless power. Even the shadow of the 9th heavenly gate was faintly discernible. It was obvious that he was about to open the 9th heavenly gate. Greetings, divine son of chaos. A large number of saints and saintesses bowed to him with respect in their eyes. Not to mention that the divine son of chaos was the direct disciple of the master of chaos. Just the fact that he was about to open the 9th heavenly gate was enough to make them respect him. Once the divine son opened the 9th heavenly gate, even the other 2 heaven-defying monsters would not be his match. This made the followers of the chaotic divine son excited, and they began to chant the name of the chaotic divine son. Pretentious! Yi Xian sneered at the power displayed by the divine son of chaos. He did not take him seriously at all. Divine Son of Destruction, you are very arrogant, but there is a price to pay for your arrogance. The Divine Son of Chaos frowned and looked at Yi Xian coldly. You! Yi Xian sneered. However, his smile was extremely disdainful, because he did not take the Divine Son of Chaos seriously. The power of chaos was indeed powerful, but he was the master of chaos. Although the Divine Son of Chaos had cultivated the power of chaos and opened the 8 heavenly gates, he was still far from Yi Xian. Moreover, the peeping of the strongest had disappeared, and the entire battlefield of 100 was sealed. Yi Xian did not have so many scruples. If the Divine Son of Chaos wanted to die, he could only send him on his way. Seems like you want to challenge me? The Divine Son of Chaos said coldly. Challenge you? Yi Xian was stunned. Then he laughed strangely and said, You are just a piece of trash with the halo of the Master of Chaos disciple. Do you have the right to be challenged by me? How dare you? No matter how good-tempered the Divine Son of Chaos was, Yi Xian had humiliated him like this, and he was instantly filled with murderous intent. Originally, the Divine Son of Chaos did not want to make things difficult for Yi Xian. As long as Yi Xian was willing to follow him, he would definitely not attack Yi Xian. After all, Yi Xian was the disciple of the Master of Destruction, and also the successor of an ultimate orthodoxy. If he killed Yi Xian, it would easily make the 2 orthodoxies hostile. However, Yi Xian dared to humiliate him. If he did not kill Yi Xian, it would damage his dignity as the Divine Son of Chaos. Suppress! Rumble! The 8 heavenly gates, chaotic divine light. The Divine Son of Chaos finally attacked. The terrifying chaotic divine light turned into a giant hand and slammed down on Yi Xian. Chapter 1651. Since you want to die, I'll send you on your way. Yi Xian smiled cruelly in the face of the Chaos Divine Son's attack. He pointed his sword and a destructive sword ray that spanned 100,000 miles appeared and slashed at the Chaos Divine Son. Boom! Heaven and earth collapsed and everything fell into oblivion. When the 2 of them clashed, the entire mountain range trembled and countless mountains collapsed. You do have some skills. The Chaos Divine Son roared, and a chaotic heaven and earth sword appeared. This was the divine weapon of the Master of Chaos. He did not expect him to give it to him. Let's stop here. Kill! The primal Chaos God Child slashed out with his sword and charged towards Yi Xian. The primal Chaos Heaven and Earth sword in his hand exploded with a power that could destroy the heavens and earth. The chaotic Heaven and Earth sword was as heavy as the sky. The chaotic Heaven and Earth sword was extremely domineering. It was made by the Master of Chaos himself, and was made with Heaven and Earth source chi. It also contained a wisp of supreme power. In the Chaos Divine Son's hand, the supreme power of the chaotic Heaven and Earth sword was fully displayed. One slash could split the sky and everything would die. One slash could split the sky. One slash could split the earth. One slash was aimed at Yi Xian. He's dead meat. Someone knew about the terrifying power of the chaotic Heaven and Earth sword, and had already determined that Yi Xian would die under this attack. The Chaos Divine Son had once used this sword to kill a veteran immortal of the 9 sky gates. This battle record was known to the world. At that time, the Chaos Divine Son had only opened 7 sky gates. Now that the Chaos Divine Son had opened 8 sky gates and the 9th sky gate, he was more powerful than before. How could Yi Xian be his match? However, in the next moment, something terrifying and strange happened. Clang! A pair of fingers clamped the primal Chaos Xianhuang sword between his fingers without the slightest trace of smoke or fire, and a loud explosion erupted. The owner of the fingers was Yi Xian. How is this possible? Are you kidding me? Am I dreaming? At the same time, the mysterious youths who had been paying attention to the battle stood up in shock. They couldn't believe their eyes. They had never underestimated Yi Xian. They had even secretly regarded him as a peerless enemy, but they had never imagined that Yi Xian would be so powerful. Facing the chaotic Divine Son's hornet sword, he was able to take it head-on with a pair of sword fingers. Not only were the mysterious youths secretly shocked, but even the Divine Sons of the Primal Chaos were stunned. They even suspected that the profound yellow sword in their hands was fake. Destructive demonic fist. Unfortunately, before the divine prince came back to his senses, Yi Xian smiled cruelly. He swung his right fist and directly smashed it towards Yi Xian. The terrifying destructive lightning wreaked havoc on his fist, and an aura that could destroy the heavens and the earth exploded out. Clang! At this critical moment, the primal chaos deity was jolted awake. He pulled out his chaotic heaven and earth sword and placed it in front of him. Bang! Unfortunately, Yi Xian's punch was too overbearing. Even though the chaotic deity blocked it with his hornet sword, he was still sent flying. You really are a piece of trash. Yi Xian sneered. He took a step forward and threw his destructive demonic fist at the primal chaos deity again. The fist radiance that filled the sky was as dazzling and terrifying as a meteor shower. Bang! 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 Like stars falling from the sky, and the Milky Way flowing backwards, Yi Xian's fist radiance shook the heavens and earth. He violently smashed at the primal chaos deity, making him unable to fight back. How can he be so powerful? Boom! Two figures arrived in an instant. They were the other two incredible geniuses. The one who spoke was the Destiny Goddess. Her beautiful face was filled with shock. Could he have opened the ninth gate of heaven? The space and time son of God spoke in shock, and made a conclusion that no one could believe. Bang! While everyone was still in shock, the primal chaos deity was smashed into the ground. A large amount of blood splattered from the sky. Rumble! Yi Xian descended from the sky, and 9 heavenly gates opened behind him. When the 9 heavenly gates appeared in front of everyone, it caused the entire world to become deathly silent. 9 gates of heaven? He opened the 9 gates of heaven first. The space-time deity and the destiny goddess were extremely shocked, let alone the other saints and saintesses. Right now, they were all looking at Yi Xian with shock in their eyes. Realization dawned on them. Everyone finally understood why the primal chaos deity was unable to kill Yi Xian with the chaotic Xianhuang sword. Instead, he was at a disadvantage. The chaotic Xianhuang sword was indeed powerful, and could be called an immemorial weapon. However, the primal chaos deity had only opened the 8th gate of heaven. How could he be a match for Yi Xian, who had opened the 9th gate of heaven? Even though it was only a difference of 1 level, it was enough to determine the outcome of the battle. It would also determine life and death. Boom! The ground shook and divine light shot into the sky. The primal chaos deity slowly got up. A strange and terrifying aura grew from him, and the world dimmed. Could it be that he wants to? The space-time deity's expression changed. He already knew what the primal chaos deity was going to do next. In terms of cultivation, he was no match for Yi Xian. However, the primal chaos deity was the successor of the master of chaos after all. He also cultivated the most powerful force in the chaotic universe. Naturally, he had trump cards that others could not imagine. Otherwise, he would have underestimated the primal chaos deity by losing so easily. Yi Xiaoyu, I have to admit that I've underestimated you. Your cultivation has also made me look at you in a new light. The primal chaos deity stepped into the sky and faced off with Yi Xian in the sky. But it all ends here. Even though you opened the 9th gate of heaven before me, you will still die in my hands today. The primal chaos deity said coldly. Huh? Suddenly, Yi Xian's heart trembled in fear. He felt a great sense of danger coming toward him. And the source of the danger was the primal chaos deity. Chaos Long River? Yi Xian said word by word. His eyes darkened. Yi Xiaoyu, at least you have some knowledge. Whoosh! The heavens were chanting sutras, the power of chaos, and the chaotic divine child was chanting the chaotic sutra. An illusory river was faintly discernible in the firmament, and the sound of flowing water could be heard incessantly. An unimaginable chaotic heavenly might descended upon the battlefield of the 100 seedlings. It was ancient and vast. When the primal chaos deity descended, the entire 100 seedlings battlefield trembled in fear. I should have thought of this. Looking at the primal chaos deity that was gradually appearing in the sky, Yi Xian could feel the terror of the primal chaos deity. Yi Xian's original body cultivated the power of time and space. One of his trump cards was to summon the Time River. As the successor of the Master of Chaos, the primal chaos deity cultivated the power of chaos. It was reasonable that he could summon the primal chaos deity. However, Yi Xian was not afraid at all. Even if the primal chaos deity could summon the primal chaos deity, it was still extremely dangerous. After all, Yi Xian had the experience of summoning the Time River. He knew very well that summoning the 3 time rivers would consume almost all of his cultivation. There was also the risk of a backlash. Moreover, even if the primal chaos deity could summon the primal chaos deity, how much power could he use? Chapter 1652. Rumble. The river of primal chaos surged with monstrous waves. The muddy and simple river rumbled as it surged through the sky, and the boundless might of the ages surged over. The chaos verse contains all things. I have the river of chaos supporting me. How could you possibly be a match for me? Boom. The divine son of the primal chaos roared. His entire body radiated chaotic divine light, and his entire being erupted with the same aura as the river of chaos, connecting himself to the river of chaos. Kill. Boom. With a flip of his hand, the primal chaos divine son waved his hand, and a huge wave of primal chaos poured down towards Yi Xian. This huge wave surged violently, and contained the power to suppress all things. Retreat! Yi Xian wasn't arrogant enough to think that he could rival the power of the primal chaos river. Even if he was at the complete immortal realm, or even a half step into the supreme realm, Yi Xian still wouldn't be able to take this blow, let alone now that he had opened the 9 great gates. Qi. A strand of the power of karma bloomed, instantly causing Yi Xian to disappear from where he stood. This was the power of the river of chaos. It was so terrifying that it could annihilate everything. Boom. The great wave overturned the sky and destroyed all things. This great wave turned millions of miles of mountains and rivers into bubbles. Everything disappeared without a trace. How terrifying. The Chaos Divine Son's attack had borrowed the power of the long river of chaos. The terrifying scene was too shocking, and it made the sky prides in the prodigy battleground gasp. How terrifying. With the support of the chaotic river, even if a half-step divinity came, they would have to run for their lives. A heaven's favorite commented in a trembling voice. That's impossible. A half-step supreme being wouldn't give him the chance to summon the river of chaos. Even if the primal chaos deity did so, he would have to pay a huge price, someone said. Yi Xiaoyu, you will die today. The divine son of chaos strode forward, and the river of chaos rumbled and surged. The ancient river emitted divine light, and the vastness of the river made one's soul tremble. Yi Xian. He was constantly retreating. The power of karma surrounded his body. His entire being was cut off from the outside world. Only the power of karma filled the space he was in. The river of chaos was known as the #1 river in the chaos verse, and it contained so much power that even the primordial gods would have to bow their heads before it. If Yi Xian tried to fight it, he'd be committing suicide. Fortunately, the chaotic son of God could only borrow a very small amount of power. As long as Yi Xian could make it through, the chaotic son of God would be like a dead dog in front of him. Kill! The chaotic divine son's power was immeasurable, but his face was slightly pale. He waved his hand and activated the power of the river, summoning another wave to attack Yi Xian. Qi. Yi Xian instantly left, and did not want to fight the chaotic divine son head-on, which made the chaotic divine son roar in anger. Yi Xiaoyu, you cowardly brat, do you dare to fight me head-on? Idiot. Yi Xian smiled coldly. His impression of the chaotic divine son had dropped by a notch. At this moment, many saints and elites who were watching the battle also looked at the chaotic divine son with a strange expression. Not only did he borrow the power of the river of chaos, he even wanted to fight him head-on. How could he say something so shameless? How could he say something so shameless? Why didn't he ask the divine son of destruction to stand still and let him hit him? At this moment, the faces of the other 2 geniuses flushed red as well. Because the chaotic deity was on the same level as them, they felt ashamed. What a disgrace. It's not glorious even if he wins, the goddess of destiny said coldly. Forget it. If he can kill the divine son of destruction, we can indeed get rid of a big problem, the divine son of time and space said with a frown. Die! With the help of the river of chaos, the chaotic divine son had nothing to worry about. He waved his chaotic divine light crazily, causing waves of chaos to attack Yi Xian. He also kept chasing after Yi Xian. Yi Xian was running away crazily. He definitely wouldn't fight the chaotic divine son head-on, and he looked extremely embarrassed. However, no one laughed at Yi Xian. After all, if they were swapped with Yi Xian, they would have already died under the river of chaos. The fact that Yi Xian could still run away calmly was already very impressive. Boom, boom, boom. The chaotic divine son chased after Yi Xian crazily. Yi Xian kept running away. Every time a chaos wave came, Yi Xian narrowly avoided it. It's embarrassing to be chased by a piece of trash like this. Although Yi Xian was running away, his mind was racing. At this moment, his clone had opened the 9 sky gates, so there was nothing he could do against the river of chaos. However, if his true body was there, he could destroy the chaotic divine son immediately with all kinds of forbidden and heaven-defying techniques, even if the chaotic divine son summoned the river of chaos. However, Yi Xian could only think about it. If his true body really appeared, he would definitely be exposed. The loss would outweigh the gain. The only right thing to do was to let his true body make a fortune and continuously improve his cultivation. Huff, huff, huff. The chaotic divine son was also exhausted after continuously summoning the river of chaos power. His face was pale, and he was panting heavily. Even the chaotic divine light on his body began to dim. No. If he continued to chase, he would lose all his cultivation before he could kill Yi Xian. By then, he would be devoured by the river of chaos before Yi Xian could do anything. The chaotic divine son instantly understood. He finally stopped chasing after Yi Xian, and there was deep helplessness in his eyes. Let's go. The next moment, something happened that left everyone dumbfounded. The primal chaos divine son actually gave up on chasing after Yi Xian, and instead fled into the distance. This was simply unbelievable. He ran away. This. When this strange scene occurred, everyone was in disbelief. However, they understood in the next moment. The primal chaos divine son had expended a large amount of his cultivation. Although he was madly chasing after Yi Xian, he was unable to do anything to him. Once he was unable to control the primal chaos river, Yi Xian would turn around and kill him. Trying to escape? Boom! Yi Xian's figure turned around, turned into a scarlet light, and chased after the chaos god child, because he definitely wouldn't let this trash go. Yi Xiaoyu. Rumble. The chaotic divine son was furious. He turned around and sent out another chaotic divine light. Another huge wave surged from the river of chaos, which forced Yi Xian to dodge. Let's see how many more times you can use the river of chaos power. Yi Xian sneered coldly. The 9 great heavenly gates rumbled as he once again shot towards the primal chaos divine son. Damn it! The chaotic divine son roared angrily. He had lost 80% of his cultivation, and was already losing control of the river of chaos. If he used the river of chaos power again, he would probably be devoured by the river of chaos. Yi Xiaoyu, you and I are both successors of the strongest. Why do you have to be so aggressive? The chaotic divine son was frantically fleeing. Although the river of chaos was still there, he did not dare to use it again. Instead, he humbled himself and implored Yi Xian. Chapter 1653. Since you dared to attack me, you should be prepared to die. Boom. Yi Xian roared and began his counterattack. A red karmic thread shot out and wrapped around the chaotic divine son. Slash. The chaotic divine son's expression changed. He summoned the chaotic heaven and earth sword and cut off the red karmic thread. However, the light around him dimmed again. Let's see how long you can last. Kill. Rumble. The destructive demonic fist was earth-shattering. Yi Xian threw a punch. The fist radiance that pierced through heaven and earth was too dazzling. It blasted toward the chaotic divine son with destructive power. If the punch landed on the chaotic divine son, his body and soul would definitely be destroyed. This was because the punch contained the cultivation of the 9 heavenly gates. It was not something the chaotic divine sun could withstand. "I'll kill you." Whoosh whoosh. The chaotic divine sun roared angrily. He channeled the river of chaos again. A huge wave of chaos poured out and went straight for Yi Xian. Boom! The destructive fist radiance was drowned by the chaos wave. Yi Xian's expression changed drastically. He tried to dodge, but the mountains behind him turned into ashes. Pfft! At the same time, he spat out a mouthful of blood. The chaotic divine light around him, which was already extremely dim, exploded. Even the river of chaos in the sky trembled. The backlash from the river of chaos had finally taken effect on the chaotic divine sun. Go to hell. Yi Xian understood the saying, "Take advantage of your weakness." He took a step forward and instantly appeared in front of the chaotic divine sun. Yi Xian pointed his finger, and countless karma red lines spread out. In the next moment, they wrapped around the chaos godchild. Die! Yi Xian smiled cruelly. He formed a seal with his hands, and the red karmic threads, wrapped around the chaotic divine sun, shone brightly. Bang! The power of karma was so terrifying that it directly caused the primal chaos divine sun to explode in the air. A large amount of blood mist scattered out, directly drenching Yi Xian in blood. Withdraw! Yi Xian flipped his hand and summoned a green gourd. He opened the gourd and sucked the chaotic divine sun's cultivation into it. After Yi Xian finished doing all of this, a satisfied smile appeared on his face. Although the chaotic deity was no match for him, he was still someone who had opened the 8 sky gates and cultivated the chaotic energy. His cultivation base was incomparably pure, which was a great supplement for Yi Xian. Come! Yi Xian stretched out his 5 fingers and sucked the chaotic Xianhuang sword into his hand. He did not even let go of the chaotic deity's pouch of cosmos. A bountiful harvest. It was a great harvest. Yi Xian crushed the restriction on the Qianquan bag and immediately discovered that it contained too many divine items. Not only were there a large number of divine pills and spiritual herbs, but there was also the great opportunity that the chaotic divine sun had obtained in the 100 Seedlings battlefield. In particular, one of the divine pills caught Yi Xian's attention. It was rumored that one could open a sky gate after consuming this pill. No one knew if this was true. Great sword. Yi Xian kept the chaotic deity's pouch of cosmos. He waved the chaotic Xianhuang sword and instantly felt the terrifying power of this sword. Although this sword was not as powerful as the heaven-destroying halberd, it was definitely an immemorial divine weapon. Yi Xian was naturally delighted. Yi Xian could be said to have gained a lot by killing the useless chaotic divine sun. The 100 Seedlings battlefield was indeed a paradise for him. As for leaving the 100 Seedlings battlefield, if the Master of Chaos knew that Yi Xian had killed the chaotic divine sun, Yi Xian naturally thought of the consequences. However, Yi Xian had no qualms about it. Previously, it was said that the life and death of those who entered the 100 Seedlings battlefield was up to fate. After that, no one, not even any orthodoxy, could seek revenge. This was also a rule set by the immemorial divine weapon. No matter how much the Master of Chaos hated Yi Xian, he could not break this rule. At this moment, Yi Xian stood in the sky as many saints below looked at him in fear. They knew that the chaotic divine sun was no match for Yi Xian. After all, Yi Xian had opened the 9 sky gates. However, they did not expect that Yi Xian would actually dare to kill the chaotic divine sun. Was he not afraid of offending the Master of Chaos, who was the immemorial divine weapon? Just as everyone was shocked by Yi Xian's bold actions, a fearful voice suddenly rang out. It brought everyone back to their senses and made Yi Xian's expression change drastically. Look, it's the chaotic river. It was unknown who cried out in alarm, but it was also this voice that caused everyone to look up at the sky. Even Yi Xian looked up at the sky. Whoosh whoosh above the void in the sky. The chaotic river summoned by the chaotic divine sun did not disappear. Instead, it was rumbling and surging. Moreover, an indescribably terrifying aura was growing in the river, as if an extremely terrifying thing was about to be born. How is this possible? Yi Xian spoke in fear. He stared fixedly at the river of primal chaos, his eyes twitching violently. Logically speaking, the chaotic river summoned by the chaotic divine sun should have disappeared when he died. However, the chaotic river still existed. This was simply unimaginable to Yi Xian. Moreover, a terrifying aura was overflowing from the chaotic river. This aura was obscure, but it made Yi Xian's heart tremble, and even his soul tremble in fear. Could it be? Could it be? Looking at the quaint and muddy river, Yi Xian was shocked and bewildered. Suddenly, an extremely terrifying guess appeared in his mind. Time passed and the world turned dark. The river of chaos was still surging, but a wave was surging up. A dark, boundless figure rose to the surface of the water along with the wave. Forbidden person thing? When this boundlessly dark figure appeared in the river of primal chaos, Yi Xian's eyes widened as he let out a low roar. His entire body gradually retreated, because he'd actually guessed correctly. Chaotic samsara. Ancient chess. Is the outcome of this chess game finally going to be decided? Rumble. The forbidden death ray spread out as the boundless dark figure walked out of the river of chaos. His voice was stiff and hoarse, as if he had not spoken for a very, very long time. Time seemed to have stopped and space seemed to have frozen. At that moment, Yi Xian could not even move a finger. The entire 100 Seedlings battlefield seemed to have stopped. Only the chaotic river in the sky was still surging. The boundless dark figure was slowly walking out of the chaotic river. The chaotic river is vast and boundless. Unfortunately, there is no place for me to stay. Rumble. The dark figure finally walked out of the chaotic river. The chaotic river behind him was illusory, until it completely disappeared from the 100 Seedlings battlefield. Boom. In the next moment, the 100 Seedlings battlefield resumed operation. The boundless dark figure suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. A pair of scarlet eyes were staring at Yi Xian. The distance between them was only 3 inches. Yi Xian's face was almost touching the other party's. I know you, the dark figure said in a hoarse voice. Chapter 1654. Stagnation. Deathly stillness. Yi Xian's body stiffened. He didn't dare to move a muscle. It wasn't that Yi Xian couldn't move, but that he really didn't dare to. The dark figure in front of him struck terror into his heart. He was afraid that if he made any unusual moves, he would be killed. Yi Xian instantly made a decision. If this terrifying taboo figure wanted to kill him, he would immediately abandon this avatar and return to his true body. Who are you? Yi Xian warned himself to calm down. He looked directly at the taboo figure in front of him, and finally spoke his first sentence. It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is that I know you. I know who you are. The dark figure's voice was no longer hoarse and stiff. It gradually returned to normal. A pair of scarlet eyes calmly stared at Yi Xian. Who am I? Yi Xian's expression changed slightly, but he still asked the question. He was only an avatar at the moment. It didn't resemble his true body at all. Even if this taboo figure had walked out of the river of chaos, he shouldn't be able to recognize his true body. No, you are not him. You are not him yet. He is a taboo among taboos. You can't hide from my eyes. I see his figure in your soul. He has never disappeared, nor has he ever left. No matter how many chaotic universes have passed, he will still exist forever. The dark figure trembled as he whispered, as though he had fallen into a state of panic. That is why I want to kill you. I want him to never return to the chaos. Rumble. Heaven and earth froze, and all laws dimmed. The dark figure growled as he raised his 5 fingers and slammed them down on Yi Xian's head. This taboo strike could destroy the heavens and the earth. Not to mention Yi Xian's clone. Even if he could use his future transformation, he wouldn't be able to withstand this strike. In the end, he would only die. It's over. Faced with the dark figure's taboo strike, Yi Xian roared inwardly. He knew he was doomed, and was prepared to abandon his avatar. Suddenly, this sure-kill attack didn't land, and what happened in the next moment caused Yi Xian to be stunned on the spot. Howls of anguish and madness filled the air. The death light of this dark figure was chaotic. He suddenly clutched his head and screamed in pain. However, a pair of scarlet eyes continued to stare at Yi Xian. Within those eyes, there was a sense of panic that Yi Xian could not understand. You're him? You're not him? No, who are you? The dark figure roared like a mad demon. His mind seemed to be in a mess as he howled in pain. This caused Yi Xian to stare at him in shock. What happened? Yi Xian could not understand. Just now, the dark figure was clearly about to kill him, but at the last moment, it stopped in time, and instead showed an extremely crazy appearance. Kill, kill, kill. The dark figure was rioting, and the entire 100 Seedlings battlefield was shaking. The death light of the land of extinction was wreaking havoc. He stared fiercely at Yi Xian, but he did not attack Yi Xian. Fear. Yi Xian actually saw fear in the dark figure's eyes. What was he afraid of? Yi Xian could completely sense the dark figure's killing intent. He was even more certain that if the other party wanted to kill him, he would definitely not be able to survive. However, the dark figure's scarlet eyes were trembling, as if there was something mysterious about Yi Xian that terrified him. Kill you. I want to die too. I want to die too. It's not the last moment yet. How can I die? The dark figure let out intermittent low roars as it fell silent in the sky. This also caused Yi Xian to look at it with fear. Rumble. All of a sudden, an extremely powerful will descended on the 100 Seedlings battlefield. The entire battlefield was covered by dark clouds, and the heavenly might of chaos descended. The will of chaos had actually descended. Chaos is hard to destroy, and heaven and earth are hard to bury. The dark figure suddenly woke up and roared fiercely. He even took a deep look at Yi Xian. Then he actually took a step forward, tore through the 100 Seedlings battlefield, and completely disappeared. As the dark figure left, the 100 Seedlings battlefield regained its peace. The will of chaos also gradually dissipated, and the dark clouds that covered the sky also mysteriously disappeared. However, the dark figure's gaze before he left made Yi Xian's heart skip a beat. It was as if the other party was telling him that he would come looking for him sooner or later. He left. After 3 breaths, Yi Xian muttered in horror. It seemed that the will of chaos had descended and scared the dark figure away. However, this person actually walked out of the river of chaos, which shocked Yi Xian to the extreme. Previously, the ancient shadow walked out of the river of time. Now another person walked out of the river of chaos. Based on this inference, was there also a taboo figure in the river of fate? 3 great rivers. 3 taboo figures? Yi Xian was inexplicably shocked. In addition to the chess grandmaster and the ancestor of all beasts, there were already 5 taboo figures that he knew of. Who is he? Just as Yi Xian's thoughts were in a mess, many saints and prodigies below were discussing in horror. They naturally saw the dark figure walk out of the river of chaos. However, they didn't know what kind of existence a taboo figure was, which made them extremely puzzled. Rumble. Yi Xian came back to his senses. He looked coldly at these saints and prodigies, then took a step forward and disappeared. What's the relationship between the divine child of destruction and this mysterious person? The divine child of time and space looked at the goddess of destiny in horror. I don't know. Don't ask. This matter needs to be reported to the strongest. The goddess of destiny shook her head solemnly. She cultivated the power of destiny and had heard of taboo figures. She had already vaguely guessed the identity of the dark figure, which made her heart feel extremely heavy. However, what made the goddess of destiny the most puzzled was why the legendary taboo figure would talk to the divine child of destruction. What did they say to each other? There's something strange about this divine child of destruction. He's definitely not that simple. Let's not make an enemy out of him for now, the goddess of destiny said in a low voice. All right. The divine child of time nodded solemnly. Even the divine child of chaos had died at the hands of Yi Xian. At most, he would be on par with the divine child of chaos. Naturally, he wouldn't provoke Yi Xian. Even if he wanted to provoke Yi Xian, he would have to open the 9th divine gate first. Otherwise, provoking Yi Xian would only result in death. On the other side, the few mysterious young men who kept a low profile were all silent. They were cultivating in seclusion in their own cave abodes, and had naturally seen what had just happened. A great enemy has appeared. Several of them whispered almost at the same time. Yi Xian's combat strength made them feel extremely pressured. Although they didn't know who this taboo figure was, the feeling of death approaching them made their hearts tremble. They also didn't know what relationship Yi Xian had with this mysterious figure. Naturally, they were extremely wary of Yi Xian. Yi Xian. He had opened up a new cave abode and was sitting cross-legged in silence. However, his eyes were terrifyingly deep. No one knew what he was thinking. Furthermore, each of them would find many opportunities. By then, Yi Xian would be able to capture them all in one fell swoop. A sea of blood overflowed into the heavens, extremely ferocious. Yi Xian took the initiative to attack. With the green gourd in hand, he began to formulate a hunting plan, completely turning the 100 Seedlings battlefield into a blood-red purgatory. He had opened the 9 heavenly gates and had the destructive power of karma. Other than the few most mysterious young geniuses, who else in the 100 Seedlings battlefield could be a match for Yi Xian? From east to west, from south to north, Yi Xian had completely turned into a killing machine. Anyone with a cultivation level that had opened 7 heavenly gates became Yi Xian's hunting targets. Sacred sons howled in agony, and sacred daughters fell. It did not matter which orthodoxy's successor they were, or which sex genius they were from. As long as they were targeted by Yi Xian, they were all slaughtered, and their cultivation levels were all absorbed into the green gourd. Even the fortuitous encounters that these people had just obtained, as well as their heaven-earth pouches, all became Yi Xian's possessions. Following Yi Xian's massacre, the entire 100 Seedlings battlefield was in an uproar. The few successors of the strongest orthodoxies all retreated, not daring to appear in front of Yi Xian at all. Moreover, the 2 heaven-defying geniuses had also gone into hiding. It was obvious that they did not dare to offend Yi Xian's ferocity. Unless the 2 heaven-defying geniuses opened the 9th heavenly gate, they would definitely not fight Yi Xian. After all, the Chaos Divine Sun was a good example. 2 million years passed in a flash. The entire 100 Seedlings battlefield was filled with whales, and there were only less than 200 people left. Most of the sacred sons and sacred sons had died tragically at the hands of Yi Xian, and that was only because Yi Xian had shown mercy. Yi Xian had become the nightmare of the 100 Seedlings battlefield. As long as someone opened the 7th or 8th heavenly gates, he would definitely appear to hunt them down immediately. Moreover, whenever he heard that someone had obtained a great fortuitous encounter, he would kill his way to that person's cave abode to ask for it. If that person did not give it to him, he would directly destroy that person's body and soul. His ferocity was unparalleled, and they trembled in fear. The 100 Seedlings battlefield was completely sealed off, and these sacred sons and sacred daughters could not escape at all. They could only hide every day, hoping to escape from Yi Xian's evil clutches. It could be said that they were struggling at death's door, and they were extremely lowly. Of course, there were also people who took the initiative to visit Yi Xian, hoping to become Yi Xian's follower. That way, they could avoid being hunted down by Yi Xian. The unfortunate thing was, those who went to visit Yi Xian, as long as their cultivation level was strong, were all killed by Yi Xian. Yi Xian directly threw out those with weak cultivation levels. According to Yi Xian, they were just a bunch of trash. How could he accept trash as his followers? Finally, under the shadow of endless fear, Yi Xian suddenly and strangely fell silent, not appearing for a full 1,000,000 years. This also allowed the few remaining sacred sons and sacred daughters to heave a sigh of relief. They could temporarily put their hearts at ease, and their lives were temporarily saved. After 5,000,000 years of nightmares, these sacred sons and sacred daughters finally discovered Yi Xian's motive for killing people. Anyone who opened the 7th heavenly gate or above was Yi Xian's target. This also caused an extremely strange phenomenon. Everyone began to suppress their own cultivation level. Even if they could open a new heavenly gate, they would not choose to break through. This was because once they broke through their cultivation level, Yi Xian would appear like a nightmare and mercilessly strip them of their lives. Inside the cave abode, Yi Xian sat cross-legged, The 9 heavenly gates rotated behind him, and the teleportation channel between his clone and main body was opening. On the other side of the channel, the main body's 7 heavenly gates were shining brightly. The light of heaven burial surrounded his body, and large amounts of natural treasures were piled up like mountains, turning into billowing spirit chi that surged into his body. But this was not the end. A green gourd was spinning upside down, pouring out a billowing sea of blood towards the main body, which was frantically absorbed and devoured by the main body. Yi Xian had killed countless sacred sons and sacred daughters, robbed them of their fortuitous opportunities, and even the spiritual items in their cosmos bags. This was an unimaginably terrifying amount of treasure. At this moment, all of it was pouring into the main body's body, causing his cultivation level to increase exponentially. Rumble. The 8th heavenly gate was condensing. With a loud rumble, the 8th heavenly gate was formed without any obstruction. After the main body opened the 8th heavenly gate, his cultivation level and combat strength increased exponentially once again. Even the underground world he was in was distorted, as if it could not contain the main body's terrifying aura. Only 1 heavenly gate has been opened. Yi Xian muttered in disappointment. Although he had successfully opened the 8th heavenly gate, one had to know that Yi Xian had used up a lot of blood soul essence chi, as well as many fortuitous opportunities and natural treasures. To put it bluntly, just these sacred sons and sacred daughters that Yi Xian had killed, with their cultivation level and the mountain of natural treasures, were enough to create a half-step omnipotent existence. Chapter 1656. Yi Xian's original body had only managed to open the 8th gate of heaven after devouring so much energy. Such a bottomless pit of foundation made Yi Xian's heart turn cold. Moreover, what disappointed Yi Xian the most was that when his original body opened the 8th gate of heaven, the blood energy and cultivation that he had devoured had only increased his cultivation by a negligible amount. Obviously, the blood soul essence from opening the 7th gate of heaven was no longer enough for his original body to devour. Oh right, why did I forget about this? A thought flashed across Yi Xian's mind. He flipped his hand, and a golden divine pill appeared in his hand. It was the chaos divine pill that he had snatched from the chaotic divine sun. Legend had it that consuming the chaos divine pill would allow one to open a gate of heaven. Yi Xian tossed the chaos divine pill to his original body, and it was immediately swallowed by his original body. However, Yi Xian's face turned extremely ugly in the next moment. That was because the chaos divine pill only managed to stabilize his original body's 8th gate of heaven, and the increase in cultivation was only 10% higher than before. What nonsense chaos divine pill is this? It's completely useless, Yi Xian growled. Actually, Yi Xian had really misunderstood the chaos divine pill. If Yi Xian was only an ordinary immortal realm expert, consuming the chaos divine pill would indeed be able to open a gate of heaven. However, his original body's foundation was too terrifying, and his body was like a bottomless pit. Even the chaos divine pill could not increase his cultivation by much. Close. Yi Xian closed the portal, and his original body disappeared from his sight. Yi Xian held his chin as he thought about the next step of his plan. His original body's cultivation was only at this level for the time being. There were less than 200 people left in the entire 100 Seedlings battlefield, and they were all suppressing their cultivation. Even if they all opened the 7th gate of heaven, given his original body's current condition, the increase in cultivation of those who devoured the 7th gate of heaven would be negligible. Yi Xian had once said that he was not a bloodthirsty person. Killing was merely a means for him to strengthen himself. The remaining people were no longer attractive to Yi Xian. He gradually turned his attention to the 2 heaven-defying monsters and the few mysterious young geniuses who kept a low profile. Rumble. All of a sudden, just as Yi Xian was deep in thought, an extremely terrifying fluctuation came from the outside world. Even Yi Xian was shocked. Who is fighting? Yi Xian muttered in a low voice. Then, he strode out of the cave and transformed into a ray of light that shot towards the source of the aura. Above the firmament in the void, The 9 heavenly gates hummed as they rotated. The goddess of destiny stood proudly in the sky. The merciless power of destiny flowed through her body. She erupted with the supreme power of the Tongtian. After millions of years of cultivation and seclusion, the goddess of destiny had finally opened the 9 heavenly gates. Her cultivation had increased tremendously. Originally, the goddess of destiny wanted to look for Yi Xian immediately. She believed that once she opened the 9 heavenly gates and mastered the power of destiny, Yi Xian would definitely not be her match. As long as she could get rid of Yi Xian, she would be the biggest winner in this 100 seedlings battlefield. However, just as she came out of seclusion, before she could go look for Yi Xian, a purple-clothed woman stood in front of her and even attacked her. The most shocking thing for the goddess of destiny was that the woman in purple's cultivation was not inferior to hers. She had also opened the 9 heavenly gates. Moreover, she did not know what cultivation technique the woman in purple cultivated. That purple light was unparalleled. Even the goddess of destiny, who had mastered the power of destiny, could not do anything about it. The two of them attacked each other until the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. However, there was no clear winner. This made the goddess of destiny's expression extremely ugly. "Who are you?" The destiny goddess frowned and yelled at the purple-clothed woman. She had never heard of such a peerlessly beautiful woman, whose cultivation was so terrifying. She was completely on par with her. "Jun Wushuang." The woman in purple spoke coldly. Her entire body exuded a cold and threatening aura. The mysterious purple light circulated around her body. She really had an unparalleled temperament. "Which sect are you from?" The goddess of destiny frowned. "I have no sect or sect. I am my own sect," Jun Wushuang said indifferently. "Fellow cultivator, I have no grudge with you. Why are you blocking my path?" The goddess of destiny did not want to fight with Jun Wushuang. She did not know why Jun Wushuang was blocking her path. Moreover, it seemed that Jun Wushuang wanted to kill her. "Only you and I are both women here. Moreover, you have opened the 9 heavenly gates. You are qualified for me to challenge you." Jun Wushuang paused for a moment. A cold light flashed in her eyes. She continued, "Moreover, you are the successor of destiny. Only by defeating you can I prove my Tao and achieve mastery of my Tao. I can then seize the seat of the strongest throughout history. With just you." The goddess of destiny's expression changed when she mentioned the strongest throughout history. She finally began to look at Jun Wushuang seriously. A murderous intent flashed in her eyes. "Although you are the successor of destiny, in my eyes, you are just SOSO." Jun Wushuang was indeed a peerless beauty. She spoke indifferently, not putting the goddess of destiny in her eyes at all. "Fine. Today, I will kill you first. Then I will kill the god of destruction," the goddess of destiny said ruthlessly. Since the other party wanted to fight her, she would kill Jun Wushuang. Rumble. Destiny was determined by the heavens. It was extremely ruthless. The goddess of destiny did not attack. Once she attacked, she used the great art of destiny. The terrifying power of destiny swept through the heavens and the earth. It attacked Jun Wushuang with a ruthless force of destruction. Boom! Jun Wushuang waved her hand. Purple divine light filled the sky. The purple light was extremely cold. It seemed to be in harmony with the mystery of the universe. It was actually afraid of the power of destiny. Bang! 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 The two great goddesses fought against each other, directly shattering this part of the sky into pieces, and then recombining again. The battle between the two attracted a lot of attention. There were even dozens of bold saints and saintesses who came to watch. However, at this time Yi Xian arrived. When he saw the battle between the two goddesses, his eyes were slightly shocked. Run! Yi Xian's arrival didn't matter, but it instantly scared the surrounding crowd into scattering. Yi Xian had already become the nightmare of the 100 Princes battlefield, and they were deeply afraid that Yi Xian had come to hunt them down. Yi Xian naturally did not care about these small fries. Instead, he watched the battle between the two goddesses with great interest. This girl in purple is really powerful. Yi Xian did not pay much attention to the goddess of destiny because he knew her well. Instead, he was very interested in Jun Wushuang. Yi Xian's arrival immediately made the two goddesses feel something. Moreover, Yi Xian's words of "this girl in purple is really powerful" made Jun Wushuang feel suffocated. She was almost injured by the goddess of destiny's attack. This also made Jun Wushuang stare hatefully at Yi Xian. Then, she continued to unleash her terrifying cultivation to fight the goddess of destiny. At this moment, the goddess of destiny was also anxious. Yi Xian's arrival also gave her a lot of pressure. She was afraid that Yi Xian would join forces with Jun Wushuang to attack her. Chapter 1657. However, the destiny goddess thought too much. Yi Xian had no intention of helping Jun Wushuang. Instead, he found a stone and sat down, watching the battle with great interest. Has she created her own Tao in law? No wonder her attacks are so fierce. Yi Xian sat on the blue stone, holding his chin as he commented on Jun Wushuang. However, this purple-clothed girl is indeed powerful, but the methods and Tao she walks are too extreme, and her usage of great techniques is too stiff. It seems like she's still lacking a bit of maturity. Yi Xian muttered to himself. Shut up. Yi Xian's comment didn't matter, but the girl in purple suddenly shouted at Yi Xian. Obviously, he had disturbed her battle. Hey, I'm helping you perfect your Tao in law. Why are you so angry? Yi Xian laughed. Boom. Taking advantage of the conversation between Jun Wushuang and Yi Xian, the destiny goddess ruthlessly attacked. A destiny great technique hit Jun Wushuang and sent her flying. This time, Yi Xian completely shut up. He didn't want Jun Wushuang to suffer because of him, because in his heart, he still admired Jun Wushuang. Yes, he admired her. Anyone who could create their own Tao and Tao would be a genius that would shock the world, especially a woman. Just this point alone made Yi Xian admire her. So he no longer spoke and patiently continued to watch the battle. As for Jun Wushuang's attack, Yi Xian didn't think that Jun Wushuang would be so weak. Just one attack was enough to determine the outcome. Sure enough. Boom. Jun Wushuang turned back. The purple light was flawless, and there were no scars on her body, but she glared fiercely at Yi Xian. If it wasn't for Yi Xian's endless chatter, which made her a little distracted, how could she have been hit by the destiny goddess's attack? You guys fight. It's rare to see a battle between women. I'll just watch quietly. Yi Xian hurriedly waved his hand and explained. Humph. Jun Wushuang snorted coldly and ignored Yi Xian. She threw herself into the battle again, and fought with the destiny goddess. The battle between the two women was an eye-opener for Yi Xian. It was said that women were made of water, but in Yi Xian's eyes, these two women were extremely ruthless. Every strike was determined to kill the other party. Where was the gentleness that a woman should have? Rumble. The battle between the two goddesses was becoming more and more terrifying. They were gradually becoming more and more intense. Heaven and earth were continuously collapsing, and the mountains, rivers, and earth were sinking in a terrifying manner. At this moment, the destiny goddess was extremely anxious. She had already mobilized all her cultivation base, and even used her trump card, the destiny grand technique, but she couldn't do anything to Jun Wushuang. On the other hand, Jun Wushuang's every strike was smooth and flawless, causing great pressure to the destiny goddess. Although the two seemed to be evenly matched, the destiny goddess was actually at a disadvantage. As the saying goes, the onlooker sees more clearly. Yi Xian was observing the battle between the two goddesses. He had already seen that the destiny goddess was not Jun Wushuang's opponent at all. Even if the destiny goddess had opened the 9 gates of heaven, compared to Jun Wushuang, she was still far behind. The so-called heaven-defying monster was just a joke. This title should be applied to Jun Wushuang. Of course, Yi Xian didn't look down on the destiny goddess. Compared to Jun Wushuang, this woman's aptitude was not inferior to Jun Wushuang. The real reason why she was at a disadvantage was the power of destiny that she cultivated. The power of destiny was the law and Tao created by the master of destiny. It was also called the strongest power by the chaotic creatures. It was indeed a very terrifying power. But there was a saying that only the most suitable for oneself was the best. No matter how powerful the power of destiny was, it was not created by the destiny goddess. She walked the law and Tao of the Master of Destiny. It was not completely compatible with her, so it was impossible for her to exert the true power of destiny. On the other hand, Jun Wushuang was different. Although she did not cultivate the strongest power, she had already walked her own law and Tao. The law that she cultivated was the most suitable for her. Every strike would erupt with 100% of her power. Her cultivation of the 9 gates of heaven was also compatible with her. Moreover, Yi Xian found something very interesting. This thing was that Jun Wushuang had not used her full strength yet. She was using the Destiny Goddess to hone her great skill. From the beginning, it was obscure and stiff, to the current smooth and flawless. Jun Wushuang's attacks were gradually smoother, and the Destiny Goddess began to have no power to fight back. Rumble. Sure enough, the Destiny Goddess was retreating step by step. When she found that she was not Jun Wushuang's opponent, it obviously made her feel humiliated. She was the disciple of destiny. She was the successor of the strongest. She was known as one of the 3 heaven-defying monsters. Was she going to be defeated in the hands of a nobody today? The Destiny Goddess's dignity was violated. She became irritable. She unleashed a terrifying power of destiny. Obviously, she did not want to be defeated in the hands of Jun Wushuang. Unfortunately, the ever-victorious destiny was not a threat to Jun Wushuang at all. It was unknown what kind of skill Jun Wushuang had cultivated. That purple light was too invincible. Every time the destiny was attacked, it was dispersed by her with a wave of her hand. You forced me to do this. Finally, 7 days later, the Destiny Goddess was no longer able to resist Jun Wushuang's attacks, and was about to be defeated in the hands of Jun Wushuang. This also made the Destiny Goddess angry. River of Destiny. Finally, the Destiny Goddess was going to use her trump card. At this moment, only the River of Destiny could turn the tables for her. At this moment, Yi Xian was shocked. He was about to attack and suppress the Goddess of Destiny. If he allowed this crazy woman to summon the River of Destiny, then something extremely terrifying would happen. After all, Yi Xian guessed that there was a taboo character hidden in the River of Destiny. If a taboo character really came out of the River of Destiny, he did not know what terrible changes would happen. But before Yi Xian could make a move, a scene that shocked him appeared. I knew you were at your wits' end. Did you really think I was not prepared? Extreme purple heavenly power. Jun Wushuang said coldly. Without waiting for the Destiny Goddess to summon the River of Destiny, she waved her hand, and a purple light illuminated the eternal sky. In an instant, the Destiny Goddess was entangled in the void. The next moment, the Destiny Goddess was instantly dispirited. Her cultivation was sealed by the purple light, let alone summoning the River of Destiny. Terrifying. Extremely terrifying. Jun Wushuang had actually suppressed the Destiny Goddess with an invincible might. Even Yi Xian couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Rumble. Purple light shook the sky. Peerless Goddess. Jun Wushuang was dressed in purple. The extreme purple heavenly power surrounded her body. She strode towards the Destiny Goddess, and a murderous voice came from her mouth. The struggle of the great Tao, the floating corpse in the sea of blood. Today, I will kill you and turn you into bones under my feet, to help me become the strongest in the future. Boom! Jun Wushuang said coldly. She had already used the extreme purple heavenly power to kill the Destiny Goddess in the void. Hey, you have already won. Wouldn't it be a waste to kill her like this? How about giving her to me? Chi. Suddenly, without waiting for Jun Wushuang to kill the Destiny Goddess, Yi Xian stepped out and stood in front of Jun Wushuang with a smile on his face. Chapter 1658. Yi Xian suddenly stood in front of her, and Jun Wushuang's expression changed. She had always regarded Yi Xian as a real opponent, and a touch of fighting spirit emerged from her eyes. Why? Jun Wushuang was worthy of being a peerless goddess. She looked at Yi Xian coldly, and asked a question that even Yi Xian was a little stunned. Yes. Why? The Destiny Goddess was suppressed by Jun Wushuang, and she was also her spoils of war. Why did Yi Xian not kill her just because he said so? However, Yi Xian was used to being overbearing and unreasonable. It was not like him to reason with Jun Wushuang at all. Keep. Chi. Without waiting for Jun Wushuang to stop him, Yi Xian flipped his hand, and a green gourd appeared, and directly sucked the destiny goddess into the gourd. Even if Jun Wushuang wanted to stop it, it was too late. How dare you? Jun Wushuang angrily reprimanded as a ray of extreme purple heavenly light shot towards Yi Xian. That wisp of purple light was too unsolvable. Even Yi Xian's heart trembled when facing it. Karma. Chi. Yi Xian shot out a red line of karma, and instantly collided with the purple light. Instantly, there was a burst of dazzling light, and the two of them flew back at the same time. Huh. Jun Wushuang's figure stabilized, and a touch of surprise flashed through her eyes. She and Yi Xian were facing each other from a distance, and the aura around her was slightly chaotic. It's strange, why can I block your purple power? Yi Xian laughed. He held the green gourd in one hand, and teased Jun Wushuang like an old friend. That's right. Jun Wushuang nodded slowly. She was indeed very surprised, because ever since she comprehended the purple power, no one could break it. But Yi Xian's attack just now had disintegrated her attack, and this alone proved that Yi Xian was much stronger than the destiny goddess. This extreme purple power of yours is indeed very powerful, and it even has the qualifications to transform into an ultimate power. It's a pity that you have yet to perfect it. Perhaps you might be able to suppress the descendants of these ultimate powers, but it's still lacking for me. Little girl in purple, I admire your aptitude. For a little girl to reach this step, there are very few in the eternal universe. But I advise you not to be my enemy. Otherwise, no matter how good your aptitude is, and if you have the potential to become the strongest of all time, you will eventually die in my hands, Yi Xian said lightly. It was not that Yi Xian was arrogant, because he was speaking the truth, although he was only a clone at the moment, and what he cultivated was the way of karma destruction, which was not his law and way. Yi Xian had studied all kinds of supreme techniques, and he had a deep understanding of supreme power. Jun Wushuang was indeed very strong, and she had comprehended the extremely overbearing purple power, but it was not enough for Yi Xian. Yi Xian had an understanding of the essence of supreme power, and the purple power had not been perfected, so naturally, he was not afraid. Yi Xian did cherish talent, which was why he said what he had just said. Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue? Let's see how capable you are. Jun Wushuang was furious. Yi Xian's preaching completely treated her as a weakling, and he even ignored her existence, and took away the destiny goddess. If she did not do anything, she would really become a joke. Boom. The extreme violet heavenly energy exploded in the sky as a purple light that pierced through the heavens, and the earth roamed around her body. After that, she charged towards Yi Xian. Bang! 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 The purple power shook the sky, overbearing and tragic. Jun Wushuang's first move was a killer move, and the unparalleled purple power raged in the sky, and a great technique was aimed at Yi Xian. She is really a crazy woman. Chi. Yi Xian took a step forward, and the demon fist of destruction whizzed out, and the power of karma protected him, and he instantly fought with Jun Wushuang. Bang! 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 The mountains and rivers trembled, and the sky collapsed. The two of them attacked each other thousands of times, and the sky fell and the earth cracked, and the mountains and rivers lost their color. The terrifying energy exploded between heaven and earth, creating an extremely terrifying scene. It had to be said, Jun Wushuang was indeed too strong, and although Yi Xian was not afraid of her purple power, he still could not suppress it, and at most, they could only fight to a draw. It was not that Yi Xian was weak, but that Jun Wushuang was very strong. She was one of the few mysterious and low-key youths, and she was also the first one to really make a move. She had indeed let Yi Xian see what it meant to be a true heaven-defying monster. However, Jun Wushuang was also very shocked that Yi Xian could withstand so many of her attacks, which was enough to prove that his cultivation level was above hers. Hey, stop fighting. If you continue like this, I'm afraid I really can't help but kill you. Yi Xian frowned. Humph. Jun Wushuang suddenly retreated, and actually stopped, but the eyes that looked at Yi Xian became colder and colder. It was not that she was really afraid of Yi Xian, but she felt the gazes of those people. And that was the real reason why she stopped. The real enemy was not only Yi Xian, but also the few mysterious and low-key young geniuses. If she were to risk her life and fight to the death with Yi Xian right now, she would only let those people reap the benefits. This wouldn't be worth it for her. Jun Wuxuang was an extremely proud person, and her goal was only to become the strongest of all time. For this goal, she had been working hard, so she would never work for others. Yi Xiaoyu, I won't argue with you today. Since you snatched the destiny goddess from my hands, you and I have formed a grudge, and I will definitely settle it with you in the future. Boom. After saying that, Jun Wuxuang took a step forward and disappeared into the distance, which made Yi Xian smile slightly. It seemed that this little girl was quite vengeful. Why are you guys not done yet? Yi Xian said loudly, which also made the few youths who were secretly watching Yi Xian and Jun Wuxuang retract their gazes. Let's go. Yi Xian took a step forward and disappeared in an instant. He was not interested in Jun Wuxuang and these people for the time being, but he was more interested in the destiny goddess that he had just snatched. On the other side, the few youths were sitting cross-legged in the cave residence. They had just witnessed the battle between Jun Wuxuang and the destiny goddess, and felt some of Yi Xian's cultivation. Everyone was silent. Interesting, these two can be considered as strong enemies, but compared to me, they are still a little weak. A man in a black robe whispered coldly. Interesting, interesting. This game is getting more and more interesting. A young man with a smile on his face gave people a harmless feeling, and his whole body was exuding a peaceful aura. I have a sword that can kill the two of them. A young man who looked to be about 14 or 15 years old said coldly, and he actually said extremely arrogant words, as if he did not take Yi Xian and Jun Wuxuang seriously. That damnable fellow. Even his clone is so terrifyingly strong. Who can be his match? Yi Xian was hiding in the dark. He had also opened the 9 gates of heaven, but he knew Yi Xian very well, so he did not dare to be the enemy of Yi Xian. Chapter 1659. Inside the cave, the green gourd spun upside down as green smoke sprayed out. With a flash of light, the destiny goddess fell out. Boom! As soon as the destiny goddess was released, she tried to escape. But before she could do anything, a god-binding rope wrapped around her, and she fell to the ground, unable to use any of her cultivation. Yi Xiaoyu, what do you want? The destiny goddess's face was cold as she shouted at Yi Xian. But if one observed carefully, they would find that although the destiny goddess's aura was cold, there was a trace of panic in her eyes. Yi Xian's name had spread throughout the 100 Seedlings battlefield. Anyone who fell into his hands would not have a good ending. This was also a well-known fact. Now that she was in the hands of Yi Xian, the destiny goddess's heart turned cold. She knew that Yi Xian must be plotting something against her. Otherwise, why would he kidnap her from Yi Xian? Do you want to live or die? Yi Xian went straight to the point. So what if I die? So what if I live? The destiny goddess frowned, but there was a glimmer of hope in her eyes. After all, no one wanted to die, not to mention this heaven's pride goddess. If she could live, she naturally did not want to die. Since you want to live, then it's easy. Why don't you and I make a deal? Yi Xian chuckled. What deal? The destiny goddess naturally knew that Yi Xian would not let her go for free, so she asked cautiously. I want you to agree to 3 conditions. As long as you agree, I will let you go and give you benefits in the future. Yi Xian smirked. What 3 conditions? The destiny goddess frowned. First, I want you to hand over the destiny scripture. Second, I want you to teach me how to summon the river of destiny. Third, submit to me and work for me from now on. Yi Xian directly stated his 3 conditions. Impossible. The next moment, without any hesitation, the destiny goddess coldly rejected Yi Xian's 3 conditions. This was because Yi Xian's 3 conditions could cause her to die, without a burial ground. This was simply betraying the master of fate. The heavenly scripture of destiny was the Destiny Lord's strongest cultivation technique. It described the grand Tao of destiny, and the method to summon the River of Destiny was of utmost importance. Not to mention the third condition. If she submitted to Yi Xian, it would be tantamount to betraying the Master of Fate. If the Master of Fate were to find out, she would definitely be beaten to death. Are you rejecting me? Yi Xian's aura gradually cooled down. He hated it when people rejected his requests. Just kill me. I won't agree to it. The Destiny Goddess was very courageous. Although she didn't want to die, she would rather die than betray the Master of Fate than agree to Yi Xian's request. I admire people with integrity. I can see from your eyes that you're not afraid of death. That's good. Yi Xian clapped his hands and praised. However, his gaze became even colder. According to Yi Xian's original plan, if the Destiny Goddess was to be used by him, she could become a hidden chess piece by the Master of Fate's side. But now, it seemed that the Destiny Goddess couldn't be controlled by him. There were many people in this world who were afraid of death, but there were also those who weren't. The Destiny Goddess happened to be one of these people. Of course, it wasn't that Yi Xian didn't have a way to make the Destiny Goddess submit, but this had already crossed Yi Xian's bottom line. After all, the Destiny Goddess was extremely proud, and it was very easy to break her pride. After all, she was still a woman. Even though she was a goddess, she couldn't break away from the nature of a woman. However, Yi Xian's method was too dirty. He disdained to use it, so naturally, he didn't plan to use it. Since you can't be used by me, I'll send you on your way. Boom! Yi Xian attacked mercilessly and killed her on the spot. The Destiny Goddess didn't even have the chance to scream before her entire body exploded on the spot. She had truly died in body and soul. Yi Xian wouldn't waste anything. He directly absorbed her cultivation into his gourd. After all, the cultivation of one of the 9 heaven gates was indeed a rare gift to his main body. Qingquan bag? As the Destiny Goddess died on the spot, her Qingquan bag attracted Yi Xian's attention. It was also sucked into Yi Xian's hand. Break! Yi Xian instantly broke the restriction on the Qingquan bag. After all, his other identity was a chaotic star master. Breaking the restriction on the Qingquan bag was a piece of cake for him. When Yi Xian checked the contents of the Qingquan bag, his eyes lit up. A jade slip attracted his attention. The contents of the Destiny Goddess's Sky Sutra were inscribed on it. Wonderful! Yi Xian smiled. He didn't expect to have an unexpected harvest. He put away the jade slip and continued to check the Destiny Goddess's Qingquan bag. After a while, Yi Xian retracted his gaze. There were many treasures in the Destiny Goddess's Qingquan bag, but there were very few that could catch Yi Xian's attention. Other than the Destiny Goddess's Sky Sutra, the rest were just some pills and spirit herbs. Of course, the so-called Destiny Goddess's Sky Sutra wasn't the real thing. It was just a copy of a jade slip. However, this was enough for Yi Xian. Rumble! Yi Xian activated the teleportation channel between his clone and main body again, and directly threw the green gourd in. His main body began to devour the Destiny Goddess's cultivation. The 8th heaven gate also increased a little, but there was still a long way to go before he could open the 9th heaven gate. After doing all this, Yi Xian closed the teleportation channel again, and the entire cave abode fell silent again. Yi Xian also fell into deep thought. According to Yi Xian's calculations, there were still 4 million years until the end of the 100 Seedlings battlefield. Now the only people who could be his competitors were those few people. However, Yi Xian wasn't interested in the so-called championship. He only wanted to increase his main body's cultivation. That was his real goal. However, Yi Xian was also troubled by one thing, and that was that these people all saw him as a great enemy. Even if he didn't attack them, they wouldn't let him go. Of course, Yi Xian wasn't afraid of these people, but he was now in a somewhat awkward situation. At this moment, his clone had opened the 9th heaven gate. Compared to these true geniuses, he didn't have much of a chance of winning. To put it bluntly, with Yi Xian's clone, he couldn't suppress these people at all. At most, he could fight one of them to a draw. Yi Xian was considering whether he should let his main body appear. If his main body appeared in the 100 Seedlings battlefield, He could definitely kill these people on the spot, with just his terrifying combat power. However, Yi Xian didn't want to do that. After all, his main body was too obvious. If the strongest of all time knew about his main body, they definitely wouldn't let him go. Moreover, that wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that Yi Xian was wary of the person who walked out of the river of chaos. He was afraid that the taboo person would appear as soon as his main body appeared. Chapter 1660. Huff. Yi Xian exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. Since his original body could not appear for the time being, his only way was to strengthen his clone. Immortal great perfection? Yi Xian muttered to himself. He had to take another step forward and merge the 9 great gates into one to achieve the immortal great perfection. Only then would he be able to suppress this young genius. However, his clone could only cultivate step by step. He did not have the devouring technique of his original body, so it would take a long time for him to reach the immortal great perfection. However, it was still okay. There were still 4 million years before the 100 Seedlings battlefield ended. These 4 million years were enough for Yi Xian to break through to the immortal great perfection. However, in a mere 4 million years, if he wanted his clone to reach the Great Circle realm, he would need a vast amount of natural treasures. Otherwise, his clone would not be able to succeed just by relying on hard work. Yi Xian flipped his hand, and a large amount of spiritual essence appeared. These spiritual essences were not of use to his original body. Even if he devoured them, they would not increase his cultivation by much. However, they were enough for his clone to cultivate. In addition to 4 million years of cultivation, Yi Xian estimated that he would be able to reach the immortal great perfection. Rumble. Yi Xian went into seclusion again. However, this time, it was his clone who cultivated. As for the young geniuses outside, Yi Xian did not pay attention to them. If Yi Xian guessed correctly, these people would make a move. After all, more than half the time had passed since the 100 Seedlings battlefield ended. It was impossible for them to remain silent. Especially after Jun Wushuang made a move, these people would probably not be able to hold back. Time was like water, passing in the blink of an eye. 2 million years had passed. Yi Xian ignored the outside world and focused on cultivating his clone. His cultivation was constantly increasing and had already touched the threshold of merging the 9 great gates into one. Merging the 9 great perfection was the immortal great perfection. It could be said that he had reached the end of the immortal great perfection. As long as he took another step, he would be half a step to the omnipotent great perfection. However, there was an iron law in the chaotic universe. Any half-step ultimate powerhouse would lose the chance to compete for the title of the strongest of all time. They would not be able to fuse with the heavenly heart of chaos of the next Yuan Hui and become the new strongest of all time. Therefore, the beginning of every Yuan Hui was the time when most half-step omnipotent experts were born. Those who had the ambition to become omnipotent experts would not allow themselves to break through to the half-step omnipotent realm during the previous Yuan Hui. However, it was still too early to talk about this. Yi Xian's clone had yet to reach the great circle of the immortal realm. 2 million years had yet to allow him to reach the great circle of the immortal realm. It was too difficult to reach the great circle of the immortal realm. This wasn't just a saying. If one wanted to merge the 9 great heavenly gates into one, not only would they need a huge amount of cultivation resources, they would also need to have a deep understanding of the immortal realm. Moreover, the most difficult stage was to merge the 9 gates into one. Countless people had failed at this stage. Inside the cave, rumble, the 9 great heavenly gates rotated endlessly. At this moment, they were trembling as if they wanted to fuse together. However, with a loud boom, the fusion of the 9 great heavenly gates failed. Sigh. Yi Xian opened his eyes slowly and let out a long sigh. This was his 3rd failure. The difficulty of merging the 9 great heavenly gates into one was beyond his imagination. Seems like I need an opportunity to merge the 9 great heavenly gates into one. If I continue to forcefully cultivate, I won't succeed. Yi Xian murmured. Since he couldn't merge the 9 great heavenly gates into one for the time being, Yi Xian decided to give up for now. He took out the heavenly scripture of destiny and started to comprehend it. It wasn't that Yi Xian coveted the power of destiny. Yi Xian had his own goal, and that goal was the river of destiny. The most basic requirement to summon the river of destiny was to cultivate the power of destiny. Only when one's power of destiny had reached great success would they be able to comprehend the method to summon the river of destiny. As Yi Xian continued to read the heavenly scripture of destiny, his brows were tightly knitted together. This was because the content of the heavenly scripture of destiny was simply shocking to him. It also gave him a deeper understanding of the Tao of the Master of Destiny. The so-called heavenly scripture of destiny actually didn't have a fixed cultivation method. If one wanted to cultivate the power of destiny, they only needed to follow a single rule. And this rule was the law of destiny. Only by following the will of the heavens would one's cultivation level naturally increase. And it would also produce the so-called power of destiny. To put it bluntly, anyone who cultivated the power of destiny would be enslaved by the law of destiny from then on. Anyone who went against the law of destiny would be obliterated by the cultivator of the power of destiny. At this moment, Yi Xian finally understood why the Master of Destiny and the undying Heaven Lord would join forces to kill him. It was because he wasn't under the control of destiny that the Master of Destiny wanted to obliterate him. Yi Xian's thoughts turned. He frowned as he looked at the heavenly scripture of destiny. According to the scripture, he wouldn't be able to cultivate this method at all. After all, Yi Xian didn't want to be enslaved by destiny. The law of destiny was a manifestation of the primal chaos will, and there was a great terror brewing within. However, being unable to cultivate the power of destiny also meant that Yi Xian wouldn't be able to summon the river of destiny. This made Yi Xian feel a little indignant. After all, Yi Xian suspected that there was a taboo character hidden in the river of destiny. He really wanted to know what kind of existence the taboo character in the three great rivers was. Rumble. Suddenly, just as Yi Xian was deep in thought, an extremely terrifying fluctuation came, accompanied by the sound of fighting and roaring. Instantly Yi Xian woke up. "Brother Yi, save me." Suddenly, a familiar voice came from outside the cave. This also made Yi Xian open his Dharma eyes, and he immediately saw the situation outside the cave. Outside the cave, Lu Yaoxing was bathed in blood, and his power of space-time was dimming. He fell pathetically in front of Yi Xian's cave, as if someone was chasing after him. Rumble. The door of the cave rumbled open, and Yi Xian stepped out and helped Lu Yaoxing up. After all, the two of them were old friends, and Yi Xian naturally wouldn't leave him in the lurch. "Brother Yi, save me." With Yi Xian's appearance, Lu Yaoxing seemed to have grabbed onto a life-saving straw, and he weakly begged Yi Xian for help. "Don't worry, with me around you won't die." Yi Xian patted Lu Yaoxing's shoulder and fed him an elixir, which made Lu Yaoxing's pale face finally turn a little rosy. "Do you think you're safe just because you escaped here?" Boom! A sword that split heaven and earth. A sword that suppressed the galaxy. A sword that fell the stars. This sword came from the horizon, and it directly slashed through the void, heading straight for Yi Xian's cave. The terrifying and sharp sword light was simply terrifying to the extreme. Interesting. Yi Xian's eyes moved, and without seeing him do anything, the chaotic heaven and earth sword appeared in his hand. As Yi Xian slashed with his sword, a sword light that was 100,000 miles long rose into the sky. This sword was simple, but it contained Yi Xian's extremely terrifying cultivation, and it completely had the power to destroy heaven and earth. Boom! The two great sword beams collided in the sky, and the heaven and earth for hundreds of millions of miles rumbled and shook. The terrifying sword intent shot out in all directions, and the mountains, rivers, and earth sank in terror. Chapter 1661. The next moment, a youth appeared in the air in an instant. The youth's aura was icy cold, and he held a broken sword in his hand. His entire body exuded an unfathomable aura. "Yi Xiaoyu." The youth's eyes were cold. "Who are you, little brat?" Yi Xian laughed. He naturally recognized this youth. This youth was the same as Jun Wushuang, one of the heaven's chosen exponents. But Yi Xian pretended not to know and mocked him. After all, he had the appearance of a youth and looked very young. You dare insult me? Boom. The youth's eyes were icy cold. The broken sword in his hand flew out of its scabbard, pulling out 10,000 rays of cold light and slashing towards Yi Xian. What a sharp sword will! Yi Xian was shocked. If even he felt threatened, it proved that the sword was indeed terrifying. But it was fine. Although Yi Xian felt threatened, the youth's sword was not enough to hurt him. Bam! Yi Xian punched out, the demon fist of annihilation roaring out, nullifying the youth's heaven-destroying sword. But the surrounding mountains were reduced to ashes, and even Yi Xian's cave had disappeared. To be able to take two of my Li Taichu's attacks, I have underestimated you. The youth sheathed his sword, and did not continue to attack Yi Xian. But his posture was high and mighty, as if he did not think that Yi Xian was a match for him. Little brat, where are your parents? Talk about acting tough. Yi Xian had never lost before. The youth was boasting shamelessly in front of him, and Yi Xian would naturally not let him have his way. You only know how to talk? Li Taichu's face was dark, and his eyes flashed with murderous intent as he looked at Yi Xian. Although he looked like a youth, he had actually lived for 500 million years. Even compared to Yi Xian, he was much older than Yi Xian. What? You want to fight me? Yi Xian laughed. He was very curious about Li Taichu because the other party was giving him a sense of threat, a feeling that he had not felt from Jun Wushuang. It won't be difficult to kill you, but killing you now will damage my cultivation. So you can rest assured that your life will be safe today. How arrogant. Extreme arrogance. He was so arrogant that Yi Xian was stunned. Yi Xian admitted that he was a very arrogant person, but today, his horizons were broadened. This Li Taichu was even more arrogant than him. Many people wanted to kill me, but in the end, they all died at my hands. Although you are different from them, I think your ending should be no different from theirs. Yi Xian smiled slightly. At this moment, Li Taichu had already calmed down. No matter how Yi Xian provoked him, he would not be angered. Instead, he looked at Yi Xian indifferently and said, You are indeed worthy of being my opponent since you were able to withstand 2 of my strikes. However, I still have 4 strikes that I have yet to unleash. How many can you withstand? Yi Xiaoyu, hand him over. Li Taichu's tone was full of threats. He really did not think much of Yi Xian, because he was very confident in his own laws and Tao. You want to take him from me? Let's see if you have what it takes. Yi Xian smiled coldly. Against such an arrogant person, only by truly stepping on him could he completely shatter his arrogance. Are you forcing me to make a move? Li Taichu narrowed his eyes. He once again held the broken sword in his hand, but this time, his body was glowing. It was a kind of black light mixed with green light, which made Yi Xian's heart tremble slightly. Brother Xiaoyu, be careful. He killed the space god's child. Lu Yaoxing quickly reminded Yi Xian, afraid that Yi Xian would be careless and die at Li Taichu's hands. Hearing this, Yi Xian was slightly stunned. He finally began to seriously examine Li Taichu, and a serious look flashed across his eyes. Very strong. Compared to Jun Wushuang, he could only be stronger. Especially the broken sword in Li Taichu's hand. It was condensing a sword will that he had never seen before. And Li Taichu's 9 gates had all been opened. The space god's child had already opened all 9 gates, but he still died at Li Taichu's sword. This alone made Yi Xian realize how powerful Li Taichu's sword will was. 6 annihilations, sole ruler of heaven and earth. Boom boom boom. Li Taichu slowly pulled out his sword. Heaven and earth were terrifyingly stagnant, and only the sword light in his hand was shining. Yi Xiaoyu, to be able to die under the 3rd sword of the 6 annihilations, you can die in peace. Li Taichu whispered coldly. You little brat, you are really arrogant. Today I will teach you a lesson. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and opened all 9 gates. The power of karma flowed out at the same time, and rays of starlight began to bloom on Yi Xian's body. At this moment, not only did Yi Xian use 2 supreme powers, but he also used the astral origin art. He was truly treating Li Taichu as a powerful enemy. The battle was about to break out, and the void kept collapsing. Just the aura of the two had already reached the peak, and it was only a moment away from exploding, and an earth-shattering battle would break out. Just at this critical moment, Yi Zichen's eyes lit up. A figure suddenly barged into this world, accompanied by laughter. "Friends, please wait. If there is anything, we can talk about it. Fighting and killing won't solve anything." A man in green stood between Yi Xian and Li Taichu. With the appearance of this person, Li Taichu's expression changed, and he pulled back the broken sword that he was about to pull out. "Jiang Fuxing, you are really like a ghost that just won't go away." "Humph." Li Taichu turned around and left without hesitation. If one looked carefully, they would find that he was extremely afraid of this man in green. Hee hee. Watching Li Taichu leave, Jiang Fuxing smiled flatteringly, then looked at Yi Xian and said, "Brother Yi, he is just a little brat. Please don't lower yourself to his level. You continue to cultivate. I will go and have a chat with him." Qi. After Jiang Fuxing finished speaking, he turned into a rainbow light and chased after Li Taichu. This made Yi Xian's eyes become extremely deep. What a powerful cultivation. I can't see through him? If Li Taichu had treated Yi Xian as a powerful enemy, then Jiang Fuxing's appearance made Yi Xian feel no threat at all, as if he was just an ordinary person. However, no threat was the greatest threat. Even Yi Xian couldn't see through this person's cultivation, which meant that this person's cultivation was stronger than his clone's. Moreover, the extremely arrogant Li Taichu actually turned around and left after seeing Jiang Fuxing, which meant that Jiang Fuxing was indeed not simple. "It seems that I have really underestimated these heaven-defying monsters," Yi Xian murmured. From Jun Wushuang to Li Taichu, and then to Jiang Fuxing who had just appeared, it really refreshed Yi Xian's understanding of these people. Very strong, definitely not below him, and this Jiang Fuxing was definitely stronger than him. Of course, the so-called strong was only stronger than Yi Xian's clone. If the original body was here, Yi Xian believed that he could directly kill these people. Chapter 1662. Thank you, Brother Xiaoyu. While Yi Xian was deep in thought, Lu Yaoxing got up with difficulty and bowed to Yi Xian with a grateful look on his face. If it weren't for Yi Xian, he would have died today. How could he not be grateful to Yi Xian? "Why were you chased by Li Taichu?" Yi Xian asked. "It's a long story. Let me tell you the details later. Let's talk somewhere else." Lu Yaoxing smiled bitterly. "Okay." Yi Xian nodded and left with Lu Yaoxing. After all, the attack with Li Taichu had turned the place he was at into a scorched earth. It was not good to stay there any longer. Yi Xian opened a new cave abode with Lu Yaoxing. As the cave door closed, only Yi Xian and Lu Yaoxing were left. "Tell me what happened," Yi Xian asked. Sigh. Lu Yaoxing let out a sigh and slowly told him what had happened. Back then, he and Yi Xian had agreed to form an alliance in the 100 Seedlings battlefield. Unfortunately, the two of them were teleported to different places. For so many years, Lu Yaoxing had been cultivating alone. Fortunately, his cultivation was strong, and he was the successor of the Space-Time Temple. Other than the three geniuses, no one could threaten him. Lu Yaoxing naturally heard about Yi Xian's deeds. However, he was cultivating in seclusion and did not go to look for Yi Xian. However, when Yi Xian killed the chaotic divine sun and Jun Wushuang appeared, the few young geniuses who had been silent all this time showed their powerful and terrifying cultivation. Li Taichu had challenged the space-time divine sun when he appeared. Although the space-time divine sun was extremely powerful and had opened the 9 gates of heaven, he was no match for Li Taichu's sword. One sword. It was just one sword. The space-time divine sun was killed on the spot. He did not even have time to use the river of time. Li Taichu's sword was too terrifying. Even now, Lu Yaoxing trembled when he recalled it. The reason he was being chased by Li Taichu was because of the space-time technique. Li Taichu wanted the space-time technique. However, Li Taichu did not find the space-time technique after killing the space-time divine sun. Li Taichu found Lu Yaoxing and forced him to hand the space-time technique. Unfortunately, Lu Yaoxing would rather die than obey. That was why the scene just now happened, Brother Xiaoyu. Thank you so much. If it weren't for your appearance, I would have lost my life. Lu Yaoxing bowed again. It's fine. You and I hit it off very well. How can I watch you die in the hands of that arrogant brat? Yi Xian lightly smiled and continued. But who is that Jiang Fusheng? I think that Li Taichu seems to be a little afraid of him. Jiang Fusheng. Lu Yaoxing's expression changed at the mention of this person. He shook his head and said, this person has always been strange. But he has a bad habit. No matter where a battle happens, he will appear very quickly to stop it. If both sides don't listen to him, then he will suppress them, and no one will be his match. Other than these two, there are 3 other people who are very powerful. Lu Yaoxing said solemnly. Oh, which 3? Yi Xian's eyes moved. One is Jun Wushuang. She is a woman, but her cultivation is very terrifying. Even the destiny goddess was defeated by her. There is another person. This person cultivates demonic arts, and has also opened the 9 gates of heaven. He is very cruel. Who knows how many saints have died at his hands. The last person is also the most mysterious. This person also cultivates demonic arts, but he is the most low profile. Very few people have seen him fight. Together with Li Taichu and Jiang Fusheng, the 5 of them are the most powerful people in the 100 Seedlings battlefield. Lu Yaoxing suddenly realized something and said, of course, there is also you, Brother Xiaoyu. With your cultivation, you are definitely not weaker than them. Hearing Lu Yaoxing's description, Yi Xian was slightly moved. Needless to say, Yi Xian had already seen Jun Wushuang and the other 2 people. As for the remaining 2, if Yi Xian guessed correctly, the one who cultivated demonic arts was his disciple, Yi Xuanma. The last person must be very powerful too. Brother Lu, you stay here and cultivate. I will go out and meet them. Yi Xian wanted to take action. He wanted to see the strength of these people, and had an extremely cruel plan. Except for Yi Xian, he could not kill him. Yi Xian would be of great use in the future. The other 4 people were great treasures. If Yi Xian guessed correctly, these 4 people all had their own dharma and Tao. Moreover, they had all opened the 9 gates of heaven. If he devoured their cultivation, the cultivation of his original body would definitely skyrocket. He might not be able to open the 9 gates of heaven, but it would not be far from it. Moreover, his doppelganger had been cultivating in seclusion, which was useless to Yi Xian. Perhaps he could find the opportunity to combine the 9 gates of heaven by fighting with these people. Brother Xiaoyu, you have to be careful. These 5 people are not simple. Even the so-called 3 geniuses are no match for them. Lu Yaoxing said as he trembled. Sensing Lu Yaoxing's fear, Yi Xian sighed in his heart. He knew that a genius had fallen. When fear rose in Lu Yaoxing's heart, his path forward was already cut off. From then on, he would no longer have the chance to fight for the title of strongest. The great Tao was like the sky, and there was no fear in the heart. Only by advancing courageously and indomitable would one be able to seize the seat of the strongest throughout the ages. Song Huaimia was a good example. He was depressed and fearful, but in the end, he became a member of the masses. At this moment, Lu Yaoxing was following in his footsteps. In the battle for the great Tao, one would fall behind if they did not move forward. The path of fighting for the title of strongest was filled with corpses. Only by stepping on the corpses of others could one move forward. Unfortunately, Lu Yaoxing had walked very far, but he still stopped at the 100 Seedlings battlefield. This stop was forever. At most, he could only cultivate to half-step to the strongest. That was his end. Brother Lu, you have no fate with the title of strongest. In the future, just be an overlord and don't get involved in these disputes. Before Yi Xian left, he softly reminded Lu Yaoxing. Brother Xiaoyu? Although Lu Yaoxing was afraid, he was very intelligent. Although Yi Xian did not point out the fear in his heart, Lu Yaoxing instantly understood what Yi Xian meant. A sad and bitter smile appeared at the corner of Lu Yaoxing's mouth. He slowly nodded and said, Yaoxing has learned something. If I can get out of the 100 Seedlings battlefield alive, I won't dare to covet the title of strongest anymore. Life is like morning dew, like a dream and like an illusion. It's a good thing that you can see yourself clearly. You don't have to take it to heart. The cave door opened, and Yi Xian strode out. However, his voice echoed in Lu Yaoxing's ears. Chapter 1663. He is. Looking at Yi Xian's departing figure, Lu Yaoxing was speechless. An extremely familiar feeling grew in his heart, but it was gone in a flash. In the end, Lu Yaoxing sighed helplessly. The two of them really look alike. A distant figure flashed across Lu Yaoxing's mind. If this person was still alive, perhaps he could suppress the entire 100 Seedlings battlefield. However, Lu Yaoxing sighed softly. That person had already fallen, and would never appear again. The sky was boundless and filled with clouds. Yi Xian was walking slowly. His entire body was moving in the sky, and he could feel the aura of those people. Over here. Suddenly, Yi Xian's eyes lit up. He felt an extremely terrifying aura coming from thousands of miles away. Boom! Yi Xian took a step forward and shot toward the aura. In a nameless valley, Li Taichu walked forward with his sword in his arms. With every step he took, sword light flashed around him. It was as if he was a sword that could tear the sky apart. Behind him, a corpse was lying in a pool of blood. The corpse was godchild of all spirits. Apparently, he had just been killed by Li Taichu with a single strike. This godchild of all spirits could not even withstand a single strike. Don't come any closer. The immortal goddess roared in fear. There was another woman beside her. It was Luo Yao, the disciple of human Tao. The two of them watched in horror as Li Taichu walked toward them. They kept retreating, and their eyes were filled with despair. Hand over the immortal scripture and the boundless secular technique. Otherwise, you will end up like godchild of all spirits, Li Taichu said coldly. Don't even think about it. Luo Yao roared with hatred. She would never hand over the boundless secular technique. The immortal goddess also looked cold. There was no way she would give in. All right, since you're not willing, then die by my sword. Clang clang clang. Li Taichu placed his hand on the broken sword. A shocking sword will shot into the sky. His entire body emitted a shocking light as he slowly pulled out the broken sword in his hand. The sword had yet to appear. However, the sword will of 6 annihilations had already caused the heavens and the earth to freeze. As long as the sword was pulled out, the two women would definitely die. You stinking brat. You really don't know how to take care of women. Suddenly, without waiting for Li Taichu to pull out the broken sword, Yi Xian quietly appeared in the valley and looked at Li Taichu mockingly. You again? In the next moment, Li Taichu's face turned cold, and the aura around him fluctuated. Previously, it was because of Yi Xian that Lu Yaoxing had escaped with his life. He had yet to settle the score with him, but now he had appeared again. Brother Yi. The immortal goddess was already in despair, but with the appearance of Yi Xian, her eyes lit up again. Yi Xiaoyu, you still want to meddle in other people's business? Boom! Li Taichu was truly enraged. He stared coldly at Yi Xian, and an extremely terrifying murderous intent erupted from him. I'm a very nosy person. Moreover, I hit it off with the immortal goddess, so I naturally can't leave her in the lurch. Yi Xian laughed. At this moment, looking at Yi Xian's mountain-like back and listening to his gentle words, the immortal goddess's face flushed red as she felt bashful in her heart. As the saying went, a hero saving a damsel in distress. This was the most touching thing since ancient times, and even the immortal goddess was no exception. Originally, Yi Xian's appearance had already made her fall for him. At this moment, Yi Xian even came to save the damsel in distress, completely making the immortal goddess lose her heart to Yi Xian. Unfortunately, the immortal goddess did not know that Yi Xian did not really want to save her. He was already being merciful by not killing her with his own hands. After all, the immortal goddess and Yi Xian had a life-and-death feud. Yi Xian naturally had his own reasons for saving her. Otherwise, why would he care about this kind of thing? Yi Xian also did not want to save the disciple of the human Tao master, Luo Yao. However, Yi Xian was indebted to the human Tao master, and Yi Xian was a person who would repay kindness. For the sake of the human Tao master, he could only save her in passing. However, The most important thing was that Yi Xian really wanted to see how strong this Li Taichu was. Yi Xiaoyu, I haven't gone to find you yet, but you came knocking on my door. Then I'll kill you with a single strike today, and take away your destructive demonic art. Li Taichu said coldly. Yi Xian smiled, but his smile was very contemptuous, and revealed a hint of brutality. It's good to be confident, but ignorance will cause you to die miserably. Yi Xian said indifferently. With just you. Ha ha ha. Li Taichu laughed maniacally, as if he had heard the funniest joke. In the next moment, his expression suddenly turned cold. I, Li Taichu, have cultivated for 535,420,000 years, and comprehended the 6 annihilation killing sword Dao on my own. I even relied on the 6 annihilation killing sword Dao to create my own technique in Dao. I've gone through countless hardships to reach my current cultivation level. How can you be a match for me? Ha! Yi Xian smiled faintly. There are mountains beyond mountains and towers beyond towers. There's always a mountain higher than the one before. Anyone can talk big, but I don't know how capable you are. Clang! In the next moment, Li Taichu did not waste any more words, and suddenly pulled out the broken sword in his hand. This sword could kill ghosts and gods. This sword strike would definitely annihilate Yi Xian's body and soul. 6 annihilation frightens ghosts and gods. Chi. The sword slashed out, and ghosts cried and gods howled. This sword caused the wind and clouds to change. This sword caused the space in all directions to explode. This sword slashed towards Yi Xian in a terrifying manner. Karma reversal. Yi Xian took a step forward, and the red glow of karma filled the sky. The mysterious power of karma suppressed heaven and earth, as if everything was reversing. Kill! Ghosts cried and gods howled, and heaven and earth mourned. Li Taichu was too terrifying, and the 6 annihilation killing sword Dao was invincible. Although it was affected by the power of karma, it still brazenly slashed towards Yi Xian. Freeze! Yi Xian's expression slightly changed as he let out an explosive shout. He pointed a finger at the broken sword, causing the red light to shine brightly. Everything began with karma, and ended with karma. Karma was the law of all things. Yi Xian's finger was based on the principle of karma, and it could stabilize heaven and earth, and the universe. It had unfathomable power. Clang! An extremely terrifying thing happened. Li Taichu's sword could not slash down. A finger was pressed against the broken sword. And no matter how Li Taichu activated his sword intent, he could not do anything to Yi Xian. Boom! The sword intent shattered, and the karma dissipated. The two of them were evenly matched, and they were sent flying at the same time. The terrifying energy completely exploded, turning the entire valley into ashes. 6 annihilation heaven and earth change. Before Yi Xian could stabilize himself, Li Taichu's angry roar sounded. He slashed out from 1,000,000 miles away, and this sword changed heaven and earth. Crack! The sky cracked, and the earth sank. This sword came from the sky, turning into 1,000,000 miles of sword light that suppressed Yi Xian. Karma heaven set. All rivers returned to the sea. Yi Xian formed a seal with both hands, and the red glow in the sky rose, instantly turning into a giant hand that defied the heavens and met Li Taichu's attack. Chapter 1664. Boom! The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. Everything was destroyed. This attack from the two of them completely exceeded the power that the 9th heavenly gate should possess. The power generated from the collision instantly exploded, causing the entire 100 seedlings battlefield to tremble incessantly. Bang! Something terrifying happened. Li Taichu's sword was truly terrifying. It actually shattered the giant hand and slashed toward Yi Xian without any decrease in power. Die! Li Taichu laughed maniacally. He was very confident in his second sword. Bind! Yi Xian frowned as he faced the sword strike that could destroy the heavens and earth. His hands quickly formed seals, and rays of starlight soared into the sky. They actually transformed into a peerless divine restriction that suppressed the sword strike. Bang! Finally, amidst an explosion, Li Taichu's second sword strike was destroyed by Yi Xian. The peerless divine restriction starlight shone brightly as it smashed towards Li Taichu. This was the technique and power of a Chaos Star Master. Facing Li Taichu's powerful 6 Annihilation Sword intent, Yi Xian could only use the Astral Origin art. Li Taichu's expression changed slightly. He suddenly pulled out his sword and slashed. The exceptional divine restriction turned into starlight and dissipated. Powerful. Very powerful. Terrifyingly powerful. Although Li Taichu was extremely arrogant, he had the right to be arrogant. Just his 6 Annihilation Sword Dao true intent alone gave Yi Xian a lot of pressure. People who walked their own path and techniques were indeed terrifying. Yi Xian thought in his heart. He had to admit that this clone of his was still a bit inferior to Li Taichu. His clone only cultivated the most powerful techniques and did not have his own path and techniques. Under its seemingly powerful appearance, there were actually too many flaws. Only those that were suitable for oneself were the best. Li Taichu walked his own path. The 6 Annihilation Sword Dao true intent was what he comprehended, and was the most suitable technique for him. The two of them were both in the 9th heaven gate. The difference between them was negligible. However, the 6 Annihilation Sword Dao was indeed superior to Yi Xian's. Yi Xian had no choice but to admit that he had underestimated Li Taichu. If he only relied on this avatar to fight Li Taichu, the chances of him losing were very high. Qi. At the same time, several streams of light shot over from all directions. It was Jun Wushuang and the others. Interesting. I'm also curious to see who's stronger between Li Taichu and Yi Xiaoyu. Jun Wushuang was dressed in a purple robe, the extreme purple heavenly energy swirling around her. Her cultivation level was much stronger than before, and the purple light around her made people's hearts palpitate. Fellow Taoists, please don't be angry. Why don't we sit down and have a good talk? Jiang Fuxing acted like a good old man, but he looked at Yi Xian with a hint of doubt in his eyes. For some reason, although Jiang Fuxing could see through the cultivation level of the divine child of destruction, he believed that he could easily defeat him. However, there was a trace of unease in his heart. For some reason, he felt that there was something wrong with this Yi Xiaoyu. However, Jiang Fuxing couldn't find the reason, which made him extremely curious about Yi Xian. This battle is indeed interesting. Li Taichu's sword will is getting sharper and sharper. I wonder how many strikes Yi Xiaoyu can take. A man in black stood with his hands behind his back. He looked at the two indifferently, and a trace of evil light flashed across his eyes. Xia Baitu. He was an extremely low-key person, and he was also one of the few people who rarely fought. However, no one would look down on him, because no one could survive when he fought, so there was almost no record of him. Humph. Although Li Taichu is powerful, he's definitely not a match for him. All of a sudden, Yi Xian strode over. He stood with his arms crossed, and an extremely terrifying demonic light covered him, giving people an extremely fierce feeling. Yi Xian, you really overestimate Yi Xiaoyu. Xia Baitu smiled coldly and said, he cultivates the power of karma, and hasn't walked out of his own path. Although he's not at a disadvantage at the beginning, he'll die in Li Taichu's hands sooner or later. As Xia Baitu's words fell, Jun Wushuang nodded in agreement. Because it was indeed as Xia Baitu said. A person who only cultivated a supreme technique would not be a match for Li Taichu. Is that so? Yi Xian smiled contemptuously. Only he knew how terrifying Yi Xian was. At this moment, Yi Xian was only a clone. If the real body came, they would know what true terror was. Of course, Yi Xian wouldn't argue with them, because it would expose Yi Xian's identity. He was also happy to watch a big show. Taoist friend Xianemo, you don't seem to believe that Li Taichu can kill Yi Xiaoyu. Could it be that you saw something? Jiang Fuxing asked suspiciously. I didn't see anything, but I'm sure Li Taichu is not a match for him. If he admits defeat and leaves early, maybe he can still live. Yi Xian smiled coldly. They were all the strongest people. But Yi Xianemo was so sure that Yi Xian would win. This surprised the others, and they didn't know why Yi Xianemo was so sure. Rumble. Just as they were talking, there was another change in the battlefield. Li Taichu was walking slowly in the sky. With every step he took, black lotuses bloomed under his feet, and there was a terrifying sword light lingering around him. Yi Xiaoyu, I've said before that you are indeed worthy to be my opponent, since you can take 2 of my sword moves. But you are just an opponent. This third move will definitely destroy your body and soul. Clang! Unsheathing the sword to challenge the heavens, unparalleled in the world. Li Taichu pressed his hand on the broken sword again. He slowly pulled out the sword, but his face became solemn and dignified. Obviously, this third move was very terrifying. At this moment, Yi Xian's face was gloomy. He could feel the terror of Li Taichu's third move. If he wanted to take this move with his own cultivation, he would be severely injured. Did he have to summon his real body? This thought flashed through Yi Xian's mind, but he rejected it in the next moment. If he summoned his real body for a mere Li Taichu, it would be too childish. Li Taichu was not qualified to do so. However, if he wanted to take the third move with the cultivation of his clone and the great techniques he had mastered, he would have to pay a huge price. However, in the next moment, Yi Xian's gaze froze, and a self-deprecating smile appeared on his face. Although his clone was not as powerful as his real body, it had opened the 9 heavenly gates, not to mention the 3 supreme techniques. If he wanted to summon his real body with this little pressure, Yi Xian wouldn't be able to get past himself. 6 annihilations, heaven and earth collapse. Clang! The broken sword was unsheathed, and a 10,000-mile sword light was drawn. The world instantly darkened, making it difficult to distinguish between the sun and the moon. It was as if heaven and earth had really been turned upside down. Kill! Boom! The third move of 6 annihilations was finally executed. This move caused heaven and earth to be turned upside down, and the surrounding scenery was shattered, proving how terrifying this move was. Seal! Yi Xian pointed a finger at the air. Streaks of starlight shot out explosively, directly forming a heaven-protecting divine restriction that charged towards the third sword. Chapter 1665. Even if you are as powerful as the Tong Tian, you will still die under my 6 annihilation sword principle. Boom! The third sword strike directly shattered the heavenly divine restriction, bringing with it an endless sword light that could overturn the universe as it charged towards Yi Xian. Karma cycle endless growth. Rumble! The sky was filled with red clouds as strands of karma red thread were formed and turned into a karma divine sword. Bang! Crack! The 6 annihilation sword principle was indeed terrifying. Yi Xian's second sword technique was also shattered, but Li Taichu's third sword technique was beginning to dissipate. Destructive demonic fist. Yi Xian punched out, and the sky-piercing fist radiance instantly shattered Li Taichu's third sword technique in the void. Damn it! Li Taichu roared in anger. He never thought that Yi Xian would be so tenacious that he could not even kill him with the third sword technique. Instead, he was able to withstand it. You do have some skills. Xie Baitu nodded slowly. The fact that Yi Xian was able to withstand Li Taichu's third sword technique was enough to make him think highly of Yi Xian. He is indeed very strong to be able to withstand Li Taichu's third sword technique without using his own technique in Dao. Jun Wushuang commented. Hearing their comments, Yi Xuanma just smiled and did not say anything. If they knew that it was only a doppelganger that was fighting with Li Taichu, their jaws would probably drop off in shock. Yi Xiaoyu, this farce should end. Li Taichu was really angry. He had already begun to lose his temper after failing to kill Yi Xian with 3 sword techniques. His hand pressed on the broken sword again, obviously about to use the 4th sword technique. The 6 annihilation sword principle is indeed terrifying, but Li Taichu can only use 4 sword techniques. If Yi Xiaoyu can still withstand the 4th sword technique, then there will be a good show to watch, Jiang Fuxing said. As expected, as Jiang Fuxing's words fell, the few of them stopped talking and began to focus on the battle between the two. The 4th sword technique? Yi Xian sneered again and again. He indeed did not have the confidence to take on Li Taichu's 4th sword, but a hint of madness rose in his eyes. Yi Xian had always been searching for an opportunity to combine the 9 doors into one. Even after cultivating in seclusion for many years, he had not been able to find it. But now he had found it. A life and death crisis. Li Taichu's 4th sword gave him the feeling of death, And it was this feeling that allowed him to find the opportunity to combine the 9 gates into one. Rumble. The Tongtian pierced through the earth and destroyed the heavens. Yi Xian's body shook, and the 9 great heavenly gates rotated behind him. They were as dazzling as 9 blazing suns, and they were gradually merging with Yi Xian's aura. What does he want to do? Jun Wuxuang was startled. Could it be that he wants to use the 9 great heavenly gates to fight? Jiang Fuxing was also stunned. The 9 great heavenly gates were not only a symbol of cultivation, but also a means of attack. However, if the heavenly gates were damaged in a battle, the source of one's own great Tao would also be damaged. Therefore, very few people would use their own heavenly gates to fight, unless they were in a desperate situation. Yi Xiaoyu, have you run out of tricks? Even if you use the 9 great heavenly gates to protect yourself, you will not be able to block my 4th sword that can destroy heaven and earth. Li Taichu roared fiercely. His hand that was pressing on the broken sword was trembling. Waves of extremely violent sword light flowed around his body, and the sword intent that overflowed from the broken sword in his hand actually shattered the surrounding space. 6 annihilations destroying all life. Clang! The 4th sword was finally drawn by Li Taichu. Heaven and earth instantly lost their color, and only the 6 annihilations sword light became eternal. Kill. Chi. This sword caused heaven and earth to lose their color. This sword caused all life to perish. This sword caused all life to perish. Yi Xian could not describe this sword, and even he had a feeling that he was about to die. 9 gates combine. 10,000 arts return to origin. At this moment, Yi Xian was not afraid in the face of danger. He roared loudly, and his hands formed a supreme spell. The 9 great heavenly gates rotated terrifyingly, and actually overlapped with each other. Boom! Under the pressure of death, Yi Xian finally found the opportunity to combine the 9 great heavenly gates. At this moment, he finally combined the 9 great heavenly gates of his doppelganger, and his doppelganger's cultivation base also reached the complete immortal realm. How is this possible? The complete immortal realm? Are you kidding me? 3 trembling voices came one after another. They were Jun Wuxuang, Jiang Fuxing, and the others. Seeing the terrifying scene of Yi Xian combining the 9 great heavenly gates, they were completely speechless. I knew it would turn out like this. Li Taichu is an idiot. Yi Xian muttered hatefully. In fact, he did not want Yi Xian to win. He even hoped that Li Taichu could kill Yi Xian, even if it was just a doppelganger. However, Li Taichu was an idiot. He had been used as a whetstone by Yi Xian, and forced Yi Xian to reach the complete immortal realm in the battle. Kill. In the sky, Li Taichu was also frightened. The 4th sword was his strongest killing move. He was sure that it could kill Yi Xian. However, he had never thought that Yi Xian could combine the 9 great heavenly gates under the pressure of his 4th sword, and officially enter the complete immortal realm. Rumble. The 4th sword slashed down. However, Yi Xian's cultivation base had already reached the complete immortal realm. His entire body emitted a terrifying divine light. Break for me! Yi Xian threw out a punch. This punch didn't have any fancy moves. It was the simplest punch, but it was also the most terrifying punch. Because this punch contained the power of the complete immortal realm, even Li Taichu's 4th sword couldn't resist it. Boom! The sky and earth trembled. The sword light collapsed. Yi Xian's punch had smashed Li Taichu's 4th sword into pieces. The terrifying eternal fist light directly hit Li Taichu's body. Bang! Barf! Li Taichu's blood soaked the sky. Blood gushed out from his mouth as he was sent backward. No one knew how many mountains he had broken. He fell 1,000,000 miles away before hitting the ground hard. Too strong. He was simply too strong. The complete immortal realm was so intimidating. He had directly crushed Li Taichu, who was unbeatable in this world. Yi Xian had smashed the so-called 4th sword in the sky. In fact, Li Taichu was really strong. He was even stronger than Yi Xian's clone at the same realm. However, he was really unlucky. When Yi Xian reached the complete immortal realm, Li Taichu couldn't be his opponent. 9 great heavenly gates, 4th level of the immortal realm. Every 3 heavenly gates was a dividing line. Although Li Taichu had opened the 9 great heavenly gates, He was just at the 3rd level of the Immortal realm. However, Yi Xian had combined the 9 gates and entered the 4th level. It was a qualitative change. How could Li Taichu be his opponent? If Li Taichu could enter the complete Immortal realm, perhaps today's result would be different. Unfortunately, he didn't have that chance anymore. Boom! Yi Xian's body tore the sky apart, appearing by Li Taichu. He indifferently looked at the unconscious Li Taichu, his eyes full of appreciation. It was undeniable. Although Li Taichu was arrogant, he was really strong. If Yi Xian hadn't combined the 9 gates, this clone would have been destroyed by this brat. Chapter 1666. Collect. Yi Xian didn't kill Li Taichu. Instead, he took out the blue gourd and sucked Li Taichu into it. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Several rainbows arrived in a blink of an eye. They were the young geniuses. When they saw Yi Xian sucking Li Taichu into the gourd, they all wore a complicated face. Taoist friend, where it's possible to let people off, you should spare them. Can you give me face and let Li Taichu go? Jiang Fuxing smiled. Who do you think you are? Why should I give you face? Face. Yi Xian didn't plan to give anyone face. Li Taichu was his trophy. Jiang Fuxing wanted him to let him go with just a few words. Wasn't that a joke? At this moment, Yi Xian had broken through to the complete Immortal realm. He could finally see Jiang Fuxing's cultivation base. This man was also at the complete Immortal realm. No wonder Yi Xian couldn't see through him. But now, Yi Xian could see through his cultivation base. He could feel that Jiang Fuxing was an extremely dangerous character. Jiang Fuxing's face changed slightly. He smiled flatteringly and didn't say anything. However, a cold light flashed in his eyes. A wisp of clear air appeared around him, but it vanished shortly after. It wasn't that Jiang Fuxing was afraid of Yi Xian. Even if Yi Xian had reached the complete Immortal realm, Jiang Fuxing didn't think that Yi Xian could be his opponent. Because he was at the complete Immortal realm. He didn't attack Yi Xian, because he felt that Yi Xian was strange. He always felt uneasy. Because of this uneasiness, he didn't want to attack Yi Xian now. He needed to observe for a while to decide if he wanted to be Yi Xian's enemy. Yi Xiaoyu, you're really strong. Let's wait and see. Jun Wushuang glared at Yi Xian. They had some conflicts before. And now, Yi Xian had reached the complete Immortal realm, which gave Jun Wushuang a lot of pressure. You have a sharp tongue. Sooner or later, I will make you my maid, Yi Xian sneered. Let's wait and see. Jun Wushuang snorted. She turned into a rainbow and flew away. Apparently, she didn't dare to fight Yi Xian now. Yi Xian's cultivation base. What? Why are you guys surrounding me? Do I have flowers on my body? Yi Xian looked around at the others with a cold smile on his face. He was very clear about what these people were planning. Although Yi Xian had just suppressed Li Taichu and reached the great circle of the Immortal realm, he had consumed a lot of his cultivation in the battle with Li Taichu. It was very likely that these people wanted to join hands and kill him. However, Yi Xian wouldn't give them the chance. Go. Fight. Yi to fight. Fight. Heat. Yi Xian. Was. Yi Xian didn't want to participate in this. He turned into a ray of light and disappeared from Yi Xian's eyes in an instant. After Jun Wushuang and Yi Xian left, only Jiang Fuxing and Xie Baitu were left. They looked at each other and saw the killing intent in each other's eyes. However, they didn't want to make the first move. After all, Yi Xian's cultivation base was too high. If they helped him, it would be a loss. Brother Yi, you have a profound cultivation base. We'll meet again if fate allows. Jiang Fuxing lightly smiled and left as well. As for Xie Baitu, he only took a deep glance at Yi Xian, before similarly transforming into a streak of light and leaving. A bunch of gutless bandits who scheme against each other. They're not even as good as that brat Li Taichu. Yi Xian sneered. These people were hostile to each other. No one wanted to make the first move. They were afraid that others would take advantage of them. Yi Xian could see that. If it was in terms of admiration, Yi Xian would rather admire Li Taichu. After all, although this kid was extremely arrogant, he did indeed have an incomparably domineering style. He wasn't afraid of anyone. Brother Yi, thank you so much. The undying heavenly maiden came over affectionately. She looked at Yi Xian with eyes filled with adoration. At this moment, she didn't even try to hide it. Although Luo Yao was also mesmerized by Yi Xian's stunning appearance, she was still a little clear-headed. She just expressed her gratitude to Yi Xian. I also cultivated the boundless secular technique. I'm fated with the master of human Tao. I'll save your life today for the sake of the master of human Tao. But if you're in danger again, you'd better take care of yourself. Yi Xian said coldly. Luo Yao wanted to ask Yi Xian why he knew the boundless secular technique. But when she felt Yi Xian's cold attitude, she could only swallow her words. She thanked Yi Xian and left. At this moment, only Yi Xian and the immortal goddess were left. Being alone made the immortal goddess a little shy. She even lowered her head and didn't dare to look at Yi Xian's eyes. Looking at the immortal goddess's attitude, Yi Xian was slightly stunned. It seemed that his heroic rescue had completely captured the immortal goddess's heart. Sigh. Yi Xian's eyes turned. He was the first to break the silence. He let out a long sigh. Brother Yi, why are you sighing? The immortal goddess was puzzled. She finally raised her head to look at Yi Xian, only to find that Yi Xian's expression was extremely troubled. It was as if he had something on his mind. Originally, I could be friends with you, but unfortunately, you and I can only be enemies. When the 100 Seedlings battlefield ends, I'm afraid that when we meet again, we'll be enemies, not friends, Yi Xian said. Why do you say that, Brother Yi? The immortal goddess suddenly became anxious. She already had a crush on Yi Xian. When she heard Yi Xian's words, her face suddenly turned pale. Looking at the immortal goddess's anxious expression, Yi Xian knew that the fish had taken the bait. He sighed softly and said, Before entering the 100 Seedlings battlefield, your master, the Lord of the Immortal Heaven, already had a huge prejudice against me. I can feel his killing intent even more. I'm afraid that even if I can win this 100 Seedlings battlefield, your master won't let me go. That won't happen. Absolutely not. The immortal goddess hurriedly waved her hand anxiously and said, Brother Yi, you saved my life. Master will definitely thank you. Why would he kill you? You don't understand. Yi Xian pretended to be helpless and said, My ambition is to become the strongest in history. But the Lord of the Immortal Heaven nurtured you to become the strongest in history. Originally, I shouldn't have saved you in the 100 Seedlings battlefield. After all, there would be one less contender. This is also very beneficial to me. However, I really couldn't bear to see you die in vain. That's why I saved you. However, when the 100 Seedlings battlefield ends, the Lord of the Immortal Heaven will definitely be disappointed in you. He will definitely find an opportunity to kill me. When that time comes, you and I will definitely have a great battle. It was said that a woman's IQ plummeted when she fell in love. The immortal goddess actually believed Yi Xian's clumsy lie. Then what should we do? The immortal goddess said with a pale face. Yi Xian felt that it was about time. He pretended to ponder for a while and said, Actually, it's not that there's no way. I'm just afraid that you'll be wronged. Brother Yi, I'm not afraid of being wronged. Just tell me if you have a way. The immortal goddess said energetically. If the Lord of the Immortal Heaven wants to kill me, you'll definitely get the news. Actually, you just need to tell me what he's doing, or where he's going every once in a while. As long as I don't meet him, I'll naturally be out of danger, Yi Xian said slowly. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.